Today, we're going to be talking about some of the most surprising FNAF fan games I've ever played. These are games that completely caught me off guard, whether it was because of their quality, creativity, or just how different they ended up being from what I expected. Some of these went from games I knew almost nothing about to games I couldn't stop thinking about, so let's get into it. One of my favorite genres of games is roguelikes. I also, as I'm sure you could have guessed, really like Five Nights at Freddy's games. I've only built a whole career off of it, so I'm sure you could have figured that out. So I bet you can imagine my pleasant surprise when I was told that there was a Five Nights at Freddy's game that was also a roguelike. The moment I learned of this, I downloaded it as fast as I could and started filming videos because I just knew even before playing it that it was going to be getting a Dxtr White video, and here we are now. You guys know what game I'm talking about. You can see the length of this video. I very clearly like this game a lot. So sit back, relax, and join me as we dive into the chaotic world of Too Many Nights. Unlike most FNAF games, Too Many Nights doesn't follow any storyline or the typical FNAF formula. Instead, it acts as an endless minigame that doesn't stop until you fail. Although I'm sure you already knew that considering everyone on Earth has played a roguelike before. At the start of each run, you will get to pick a character, of which there are many. Each character gives you a different set of abilities, with each having a list of pro and cons. You don't start with all of them and will have to gradually unlock them by doing specific tasks. I'll go over them in a bit. After picking a character, you will have to select 3 animatronics to put into the pizzeria. And this is where this game gets brilliant. You get to choose 3 animatronics yourself. The game will never choose them for you, and your initial choices will be random at the start of each run. However, if you really don't like your starting options, you can press R to re-roll your first pick as much as you'd like. As I'm sure you could have guessed, there are several animatronics in Too Many Nights. Each has a unique mechanic, and it will be up to you to plan out which animatronics you bring along, and control how they will be forced to interact with each other. Each animatronic falls into a certain category. You have your door animatronics, your camera animatronics, your mask animatronics, your vent animatronics, your flashlight animatronics, and what I'm going to call your nuisance animatronics. Each of these categories serves its own purpose, and generally speaking, picking multiple animatronics from the same category will make your gameplay experience easier. Before I really start talking about the characters, I'd like to explain the rest of the experience of a run. To start, after selecting your first 3 animatronics, the run will begin. After completing a night, you will be forced to add 1 new character. Every few nights, you will also be forced to add a penalty. These penalties fall into 2 categories: your general penalties and your character penalties. I'll dive into each of these later as well. After selecting a penalty, you may get the chance to go to the shop and buy some items. Throughout the night, you will gain Faz coins from successfully defending yourself from the animatronics. Once again, I will get into these items later. Keep repeating this process until you eventually die, and boom, that's the gameplay loop of Too Many Nights. Of course, that was a very oversimplified explanation. So now we're going to dive into each of the animatronics, how they work, and to keep it interesting, I'll even throw each character into a tier list so that you can all argue about it in the comments. Hold up, guys. I want to take a little break here to tell you that this video is sponsored by me. For those of you who didn't know, I have channel memberships. I would never ask anyone to do this as I don't even have any interesting perks attached, but if you really enjoy what I do and would like to support me a little bit extra, that's a great way to do it. Also, if you'd like to actually get something for your money in return, I have a merch store with some designs I commissioned from a fan, the same fan who actually drew these new character PNGs. So if you'd like to have my silly little demon character on your clothes, then that's a great place to go do that. And hey, if enough people end up liking that stuff, I will 100% get some more created in the future, and maybe even commission some more fan artists for some uniqueness in art styles. You can find the link to that in the description of this video. Sorry for the interruption. Let's talk about everything that Too Many Nights has to offer. I'm just going to go down the list that appears on the wiki, and be prepared, there are a lot of animatronics. Editor, I'd say I'm sorry for what you're about to have to do, but that would be a lie. Let's go. Freddy is a camera animatronic, aka my personal least favorite type of animatronic. Freddy will start on stage and make his way towards your right door. All you have to do is occasionally stare at him on the cameras to make him go backwards. I'm sure you can guess why I'm not going to like a majority of these camera animatronics. If he ever reaches your door, he will never leave and you'll be forced to keep it closed for the rest of the night or die. Freddy also has 5 penalties that have the option to be chosen when you have to select a penalty. The first is Mad Freddy, which will make you have to look at Freddy longer to make him go backwards. His second penalty is Branched, which gives him a chance to be able to attack your left door as well. And when you're playing this game, you will very quickly fall into a pattern. So having a character be able to switch up on you like this would very obviously throw you off. Stare Down is another Freddy penalty. This one is horrific. It makes Freddy never move backwards. Staring at him will only stall him. However, to compensate, he moves a lot slower, and the camera doesn't have to be up for you to be able to stall him. Invisifreddy is a penalty that I'm sure you could take a solid guess at what it does. That's right, it makes him fucking invisible. Isn't that great? Sure, a sound cue is added to his movements, but fuck that. That just sounds like AIDS. Finally, we have Nuh-uh, a penalty that's just so silly. When Freddy gets to your door, he will prevent the door from ever closing again throughout the rest of the night. Isn't that awesome? No, it isn't? Yeah, I know. Don't choose this one if you can help it. Overall, I'm not a fan of Freddy, but without penalties, he isn't the worst character in this game, so I'm going to give him a C tier. Bonnie is a door character, aka a character I usually like to pick. Bonnie starts on stage and makes his way to your left door. Once there, a sound cue will play and you'll have to close the door and stare at him on the camera until he goes away. Then you can open the door again. Incredibly easy character, however he does have 3 penalties. Cutting is a penalty that makes both Bonnie and Chica take shorter paths to your doors. Because of how easy both of them are to deal with, this penalty isn't too bad. Quiet Steps makes Bonnie and Chica not make sound cues while at your door, so yeah, fuck that. No other words need to be said. And finally, Flip Side is a penalty that will make Bonnie and Chica swap doors immediately after leaving the first door. Easily the second worst penalty these two have. Speaking of Bonnie and Chica, Chica is literally identical to Bonnie, except she attacks the right door instead of the left. And because of this, and how quick I am to pick these two, I'm putting both of them in S tier. Foxy isn't the worst character I've seen, but I did avoid choosing him for a very long time. Foxy will try to leave his stage in the ticket booth. Have your camera on him to stall him. If you don't, he'll charge at your door and bang on it, and make you lose a poop sock full of power. Foxy has 3 penalties and 1 item, which is pretty cool. Insta-Foxy is a penalty that will cause Foxy to instantly start in his last phase at the start of a night. This penalty actually isn't that bad at all, just let him charge right away and it's like the penalty isn't even there anymore. Henhouse is a penalty that forces the camera to be up to stall Foxy, which actually is the most cancerous thing I've ever heard of. Haywire is the final penalty, which will make him attack your other door directly after attacking the first door. The only bad part about this is that him banging on your door drains power. And the item that Foxy has is called Good Guy, which makes Foxy not a threat. Looking at him will make him progress, and when he comes to your office, he'll give you a nice little gift like a good boy. Because of how much of a non-issue he is if you balance him properly with the other characters, I'm putting him in B tier. Mangle is a vent animatronic, and she's honestly not that big of a problem. She'll move through the cameras into one of your vents. All you have to do is put your mask on when she's in a vent. She will enter the office for a short period and then leave. I personally hate having to use the mask in this game, so I try my best to avoid characters that force that, but Mangle is probably the easiest of them. Mangle does have 3 penalties. Anger Management is a penalty that makes looking at Mangle speed her up. Aggressive Mangle is a penalty that makes Mangle force you to put the mask on for longer. And finally, Slithering In is a penalty that causes looking at Mangle in the vents to make her immediately appear in your office. Overall, I hate the mask mechanic. However, Mangle isn't the worst mask character in the game, so I'm giving her a C tier. Caroline, or the Marionette, behaves exactly how you'd expect her to. She's a music box. Hooray! Who could have expected that? If the music box winds down, for the rest of the night she will randomly teleport to a camera with a sound cue at random intervals. You will have to find her and stare at her if you don't want her to kill you. She does, however, have a whopping 6 fucking penalties, so that's just amazing. Let's go over all of them quickly. Winding down makes you have to wind the music box for longer. Moving box makes the music box move to a random camera every time you pull the camera down. AIDS. Muted music makes her not make a sound cue when she teleports to a camera. Show Stealer gives you less time to find her while she's away from the music box. Last Stand is really ass, by the way. When it turns 6 a.m., Caroline will teleport to a random camera, and the night will only end once you find her. Dude, there's nothing I can do about that. I can't do anything about that. That's just fucking cooked, bro. I can't do nothing about that. And finally, the worst penalty yet, Caroline Carousel, which will make her be away from the music box the entire night. Genuinely, never pick this penalty. Caroline is definitely annoying, but in all honesty, the music box is pretty forgiving until much later nights. So, because of this, I'm only putting her in D tier. Lizzie is the first non-FNAF canon character we'll be talking about. Fun fact, there are a lot of non-canon characters, but I think that's what adds to this game's charm. Lizzie herself isn't actually the threat. She spawns down bitty buds in your office while your camera is up. Simply hold your flashlight on them and they'll disappear. If there are too many, they'll call Lizzie and she will then kill you. Lizzie has 2 different penalties as well. Speedy Bud will make the bitty buds call Lizzie to your office faster, and Help Wanted will turn the brightly colored bitty buds into dark colored plush Lizzies, which are much harder to see in the very purple office. Lizzie is one of my favorite characters to see in my runs. I love flashlight characters, and I really love office characters. So because of this, I'm giving her S tier. BB is a bitch, but I'm sure you didn't need me to tell you that. And of course, they gave him the worst mechanic of all time. At random times, he will teleport to a random camera with a sound cue.
Hello?
You will have to find which camera he's on and hold the flashlight on him.
Bye-bye.
If that wasn't bad enough, his penalties make him even worse. Mute BB makes him not make a sound cue, which is actually just fucking torment. Don't pick this. I'm Moving will make him teleport to a second camera after you find him the first time. Little asshole. And Aggressive BB will force you to hold the light on him for longer. Literally, fuck that. I'm sure from the tone in my voice, you can tell I really don't like BB, so because of that, I'm obviously giving him an F tier. Sparky the dog is a camera character that makes me piss blood. He's in the storage room and has 4 phases he will move through before appearing in your office and forcing you to put the mask on for a decently long time. To prevent this, all you have to do is stare at him on the cameras, something I've already made clear I'm not a super huge fan of. He also has 3 penalties if your urine wasn't already red enough. Mad Sparky will force you to look at him on the cameras for longer to push him back. Sparky Speedy will make Sparky move faster, obviously. And Aggressive Sparky will make you put the mask on longer if he enters the office. I don't like camera characters. I hate the idea of staring at a character to stop them. D tier. Percy Poodle, yes, from Playtime with Percy, is easily one of the best characters in the game. Being an office flashlight animatronic, all he does is have multiple phases in front of the big office window. He'll start pounding on the glass in his final phase, and you'll then have to hold the flashlight on him to make him go back. He also only has 2 penalties, and both of them really aren't that bad. Aggressive Percy will make him only go back to his last stage the first time you deal with him, but only the first time, so who cares? And Mute Percy makes him make no sound cue when he's pounding on the glass, so just open your eyes and this won't be a problem. Percy is simple. Percy is always an easy pick. S tier. Rowan Rat, on the other hand, is actual fucking torment. At random times, he will appear in any of the 4 corners of the building. When you see him in one, shock him and he'll go away. You will also have the ability to use a radar to detect where he is and where he's going. Oh yeah, and you only have a certain number of shocks, so that's just terrible. He has 4 possible penalties, and all of them are worse than death. Aggressive Rowan gives you less time to shock him. No radar removes the fucking radar, making you constantly have to check all 4 corners yourself. Less shocks obviously gives you less shocks, as the name would suggest. And Invisi-Rowan makes him fucking invisible. Fuck that. Never in a million years am I picking that shitty option. Rowan by himself isn't the worst, but if you get any of his penalties, which will happen eventually, he becomes a nightmare. So I'm putting him in D tier. Maple is almost a good character, but because it's not the only character you'll be up against, it's hard to find it as an attractive pick. At the beginning of each night, it will require you to collect a certain amount of plushies. This number increases with its AI value. You will then have to search around the cameras for these plushies. If you don't find them all before 6 a.m., it'll kill you. Amazing mechanic, but again, it's not the only one, so it's really just more of a pain in the ass. It does have 3 penalties. What are those? Well, Early Killer will have it check if you have the plushies at 5 a.m. rather than 6. Hidden Counter will literally just make it not tell you how many plushies you need to find, which is bullshit. And Restock will add a timer to how fast you need to find the plushies. If you don't find them in time, it'll re-hide all the plushies again, forcing you to find them all in pretty much one go. Again, it's not the worst, but can easily get out of control on later nights when you start to only focus on certain cameras while it has the large plushie counter. So I'm going to give it a C tier. Noelle is another very interesting character that easily has the chance to be forgotten about. When you start the night, a pair of scissors will appear on a random camera. At complete random, Noelle can appear in the office with a sound cue. When it does, you need to find the scissors and click them to make it go away. The scissors will then teleport to another random camera. If you don't click the scissors, it'll force you to put the mask on for a few seconds, which is a long time in this game. Noelle, of course, has 3 penalties. Pull down will make it forcefully pull down the camera when it enters your office, which could honestly be seen as a good thing. Bro, that's not okay. I fucked myself. Having the force pull down from Noelle mixed with the Roby absolutely fucking creamed my ass, dude. Aggressive Noelle is terrible. When it enters your office, if you click any camera aside from the one with the scissors, it will immediately make you put the mask on. And Crazed Teddy will cause it to insta-kill you instead of putting the mask on. A certain item does affect Noelle, however. If you have Chill Pill, you will get 4 additional seconds to put the mask on when it attacks you, which is a lot of time in this game. I'm not a huge fan of Noelle, especially not when it has aggressive on, so because of this, I'm going to put it in C tier. Melatonin is a real bitch of a character. It moves around the cameras, but it's invisible when it does. You'll hear it laughing in one of your ears, and on the 3rd laugh, you'll have to close the door of whichever side it's on until you hear it leave. It has 2 penalties that just serve as the salt in the wound as well. Switch Up is easily the worst. Before it moves, you'll have to check the dining room to see a counter for how many laughs it'll have before attacking, now being randomized from 2 to 4. Unplanned only makes its first laugh on the correct side, needing you to remember which side it was originally on. I don't like characters that I can't see. I also find it really hard to keep a timer in your head like you need to do with Melatonin. So because of this, I'm putting it in D tier. Lydia is a dog. She'll be in the ticket booth in a fucking cage where she belongs. When you hear her banging on the cage, you'll have to take her out like Ol Yeller. Just kidding, you actually just have to hold the cage until that dumb mutt shuts up. The wiki, for some reason, doesn't have a page for her, and since I avoided her at all costs, I actually never experienced any of her penalties. But if I had to guess, I'd bet one of them makes you hold her cage for longer, and another makes her not make noise when she's attacking. But going off of how I know her to be with no penalties, I'm going to put her in C tier. Amber is a character that at first didn't seem too bad, but will very quickly become a run killer. She begins at the entrance. At random times, she'll hold up a playing card with a suit on it. You will then have to click the corresponding suit on the cameras or she'll kill you. The 2 penalties she has might actually be the most evil ones in the entire game. Follow Suit will give her the ability to have more than 1 card, and 52 Pickup will make that number of cards she can hold literally be any number, which is so retarded I can't even begin to explain why you shouldn't pick this, so just don't. I thought Amber would be great, but I very quickly started to avoid her whenever I could. C tier. CG is annoying, a nuisance character, but not very hard to deal with unless you get unlucky. She will randomly move around the cameras, and if you look at her on the cameras for too long, she'll make you put the mask on for a really, really long time. Her penalties aren't really the worst, however. Aggressive CG will make you put the mask on for longer, and Insta CG will make her enter your office if you look at her, period, even if only for a fraction of a second. However, a monitor is added to your office showing exactly where she is at all times so that you can easily avoid her. There are much worse nuisance characters, and if you don't have any of her penalties, she really isn't a problem. B tier. Dsam, I'm gonna say Sam, is a character I never once chose throughout my playthrough. You may think that makes me a bad reviewer, but I personally think that makes me someone who values not killing myself. Sam will slowly walk back and forth in front of your window with some sound cues. Before he gets to a door, you will have to close it, making him a character you pretty much always have to be watching. He has 2 penalties. Quiet Som removes his sound cues, and Invisisom forces you to only use his sound cues. So pick your poison, dumbass. Or even better, just don't pick this character. D tier. Roby is torture. I thought he wouldn't be so bad, and let's just say I wasn't so right. He sits in your office with a timer on his eye. When it reaches 0, you must have your mask on or you will die. He has 2 penalties that are all equally terrible. Mute Roby removes the sound cue he makes right before waking up. Awoken Roby makes him stay awake longer, forcing you to put the mask on longer. I'm dead serious. Don't pick this character. He is horrific. F tier. Alexis is simple, but very easy to forget about, especially on later nights. She will randomly wander around the cameras. If you pull the camera down while on the camera she's at, she'll make you put the mask on for a really long time. So you'll have to switch cameras before pulling them down. She also has 3 penalties. Aggressive Alexis makes her act like CG, where looking at her for too long will also make her attack you. Sneaky Ghost will only make her appear on a camera after you look at it for a second, and Crazed Ghost will insta-kill you instead of making you put the mask on. If you are diligent and aren't an idiot, Alexis is not an issue. But because of how fast you'll be switching through cameras on later nights, I can't give her any higher than a B tier. Onion is another character I never choose. When you pull up the cameras, there's a chance he'll be on them and quickly run left or right. You will have to close the corresponding door. If you close both, he'll drain a bunch of power. Again, for some reason he doesn't have a wiki page, so I don't know what his penalties are, but just knowing what he does, I'm going to put him in C tier. T Generic is a very annoying character who I only choose if every other character was ass. He will be in the entrance with an arrow on his face. Once he leaves the entrance, he will go to whichever vent he was pointing to, and you'll have to stare at him in that vent until he goes away. If he gets into your office, you'll have to put the mask on for a very long time. He has 3 penalties that somehow make him even more annoying. Crazed Robot will make him insta-kill you instead of putting the mask on. How About I Do Anyway will make him enter your office regardless of if you looked at him in the vents or not. However, if you did look at him, you'll have to put the mask on for a shorter amount of time. And Glitched will make T Generic sometimes switch what vent he's going to, making his arrows completely useless. He's a character that breaks the rules and that breaks my balls. D tier. Kaiden acts in much the same way as T Generic. He'll start in the entrance holding a sign with an arrow pointing left or right. Once he leaves with a sound cue, you'll have to close whichever door he was pointing to. He of course has penalties that make him silent and make him go in the opposite direction the sign was pointing to. I've actually picked Kaiden multiple times because if you can avoid his annoying penalties, he's an incredibly easy character to deal with, since you can close both doors when you hear his sound cue for about 2 seconds and not have any additional penalties. A tier. The Ink Monstrosity is always an immediate pick for me. It starts in your office on the ceiling and slowly creeps down. Hold your flashlight on it to force it back up. The best part is it'll basically teleport all the way back up when you flash the light on him, but that's where his penalties come into play. Stubborn will make you have to hold your light on him, removing the loveliness of this character, but overall still isn't too bad. Head Start will make the Ink Monstrosity start halfway down in your office and won't be able to go all the way back up to the top. Easily the worst penalty this character has. I love this character, always an immediate choice for me. S tier. Robo Popcakes is a character I initially avoided, but eventually grew to really like picking. At random, he'll spawn on your cameras. Not a specific one, he'll just be an overlay. You will have to match up 2 patterns using the arrows on the overlay, and once you do, he'll disappear. If you don't do it in time, you'll die. This character is always one I liked choosing because of how likely I am to pick characters like Bonnie and Chica, because while I stare at them on the cameras, I can deal with RoboCake, killing 2 birds with 1 stone. He has 2 penalties. X = X minus 2 gives you 2 less seconds to align his face, and Pop Time will only cause time to progress when you complete a Robo Popcakes attack. Overall, even with max penalties, Robo Popcakes isn't a terrible character. A tier. Entity 12 is pure masochism. They'll start in the storage or maintenance and move down your hall. Watch them on the cameras to make it go back. If they get to your office, they'll make you put the mask on for a long ass time. And get this, the 2 penalties they add doesn't make it any better. Aggressive Entity 12 will make you put the mask on for the rest of the fucking night if they gets into your office, and Run Killer will literally start with it inside of your office and it will never leave. Literally fuck that. Fuck this character. F tier. Mura is a character I'd highly recommend not picking if you have other characters that don't want you spamming through cameras, because you will have to be doing that a lot with Mira. Mira will be in the kitchen the entire night and will require you to feed her candy. If you don't feed her enough, you'll die. Candy will randomly spawn throughout the cameras, so you'll have to surf through them to click on them. The penalties she adds are brutal. Savory Tooth makes candy spawn less. Small Plate puts a small cap on the amount of candies you can hold at a time. And Sweet and Sour adds sour candies that will remove a candy from your candy counter if you click on them. So if you've been working your muscle memory this whole time and get this penalty, have fun clicking on every single sour one all the time. I'm not a fan of the camera surfing this character brings, and I'd much rather prefer to just ignore picking her. D tier. The Ringmaster is an interesting character. He'll randomly spawn on your cameras. When you see him, you'll have to flip the camera down and greet him in your office. If you switch cameras, he'll make you put the mask on for a long time. Crazed Magician is a penalty that will make clicking off of his camera just instantly kill you. And Masked Magician will make flipping down the camera always make you put the mask on, but for less time than usual. I don't love picking Ringmaster, but I will usually end up choosing him later in a run. B tier. The Entity is someone who gives me AIDS. They will randomly spawn on your cameras in 3 locations, except only one of them is actually real. You'll be able to tell because the fakes will be more transparent. Again, for some reason their wiki isn't available, and I never actually chose any of their penalties, so I'm not totally sure what they are. But I hate find them on the camera characters. You guys know that. D tier. No VA is a character I only dealt with once, acting as probably the most nuisance characters of all the nuisance characters. No VA will randomly move around your cameras. You will have to avoid clicking on the camera it's on, or you'll have to put on the mask. On lower AI levels, the camera it's on will be marked with green, making it very easy to see. As the AI goes up, it'll get harder and harder, eventually becoming fucking invisible. And let me tell you, the penalties make it even worse, as I'm sure you could have guessed. Malware makes clicking on no VA's camera kill you instantly. Spamware makes no VA on multiple cameras at a time, and adware creates an adware window on your cameras. If you don't close it fast enough, it will force you to look at no VA's camera. I actually think this character is really cool, and I think that its penalties are actually super interesting. Aside from malware, that one is AIDS. I still don't love picking this character though, because I hate mask characters. So because of this, I'm giving no VA C tier. Moldy is a character that is a really good pick for early game, but late game will easily become a character you will forget about. Whenever you pull down your camera, there's a chance he'll be in your office. If he is, you'll have to hold your light on him for a while, or you'll have to put the mask on. He has 2 penalties. Aggressive Moldy will make you have to shine your light on him for longer, and Crazed Mold will make pulling up the camera while he's in your room instantly kill you. Again, early game, he's amazing, but you will very quickly forget about him once more characters start to get added. So because of this, I'm giving him B tier. Rita Rabbit is thick, but that's not important. What is how she works. She sits on her fat ass in the arcade slowly attempting to leave. All you have to do is hold the flashlight on her to make her go away. Honestly, not that bad of a character if you pair her with other arcade characters, which there is a decent amount of. She has 2 penalties. Aggressive Rita will make you hold your flashlight on her longer, and Cheeky Rabbit will make her move faster the longer you're not looking at her camera. If you know how to stack her with other characters properly, Rita shouldn't be a problem even if you have her penalties. A tier. Coral is another character that I love seeing as an option to pick. Coral will randomly appear at either of your doors with no sound cue, so you'll have to make sure you're paying attention. Simply close the door he's at and he'll knock, letting you know he's left. He has 2 different penalties. Blinding will make you additionally hold the flashlight on him for a while, and making sure will force you to have your camera down while the door is closed in order for him to leave. I love this character, he's super easy to deal with, S tier. Shrimp is another character that just makes me giddy with joy whenever I see her. Shrimp will occasionally spawn some shrimp food in your office on either side. Whichever side it's on is the side you have to close the door of until the shrimp food disappears. The 2 penalties she adds are easily some of the best to deal with. Big Shrimpin' is a penalty that will cause the shrimp food to have the chance to be really big. If it's really big, you just have to close both doors. and small shrimpin gives the food the chance to have the lid off. If it is, all you have to do is close the door to the opposite side of the food. Shrimp is incredibly easy to deal with, she's satisfying to deal with, and she doesn't use the fucking cameras, which I love. Easy S tier. Worm is the next character we have to talk about, and I avoided this guy like the plague. I was very scared of how it was going to work, so I never actually ended up using it. Worm will start in the dining room and go down your right hall and will stay there until you open the door. When you open the door, it'll crawl through your office. Avoid looking at it either by using the mask or looking at the cameras until it leaves. It also has 2 penalties. Snail makes it move across the office slower, and Digger will make Worm add another bar of power usage while it's at your door. Worm just seems like a character that would completely disrupt the flow of the night, and because of that, I'm putting it in D tier. Kyle and Bob are the 2 next assholes I want to talk about, and these guys are weird, and also really shitty and confusing, and I don't fully understand them. Kyle and Bob are 2 separate animatronics, but they work in tandem. Both of them are vent characters. If Kyle, the yellow one, enters your vent, you have to look at him on the camera or he will enter your office and make you use the mask. If Bob is in your vent, you can't look at him on the cameras or he'll enter your office and make you use the mask. The only problem is, I was never able to figure out how to tell which one entered the vent. At first, I thought maybe they'd alternate and I'd have to remember, but then during one run, Kyle attacked twice in a row. So I'm thinking there has to be something I'm misunderstanding about these 2. Of course, they each have 2 penalties. Crazed Sun makes them instantly kill you if they enter your office, and Eclipsed will make one of them invisible while the other is in the vent. I tried to like these guys, but because I'm retarded and can't fully figure them out, they were never for me. D tier. Magi is a pretty interesting character. He will consistently walk back and forth in front of your window. At random, he will make a sound cue letting you know he's about to attack.
Come on, go.
When he does, you have to close the door to the side he's on, leading to you needing to keep track and remember which side he's on at all times. This isn't too bad for someone like me who tries to be able to stay in the office as much as possible. Magi has 3 penalties. Reach around will change the way his sound cues work. If he says
surprise
or
you won't see this one coming,
you will then need to close the door to the opposite side he's on. This can be confusing for obvious reasons. Do it myself is a penalty that will make Magi attack the opposite door whenever you deal with his puppet the first time. And Invisimagi makes him fucking invisible, as I'm sure you could have guessed. Magi is not my favorite, but I have no problem picking him later in the run when things are getting tight. B tier. Mallory, on the other hand, is torture. She stays in the ticket booth. At random, she will hold up any amount of fingers on one hand. You will then have to flash her with the flashlight that many times. If you flash her too many times or not enough, she will dash at your door 15 times. This is AIDS. And I can't even lie, 15 times? Why so many? Seems a bit overkill, don't you think? But let's talk about her penalties, which she has 3 of. Ambidextrous will make her be able to show you up to 8 fingers. DoorDash will make her charge 20 fucking times instead of 15, and DoorDash EX makes her charge your doors for the entire night. Easily one of the most bullshit characters when you have her penalties on, but if you can avoid choosing them, she's only really ass because her hand is conveniently behind the fucking camera map. D tier. Roy is one of the only camera animatronics I can actually stomach. He starts in the dining room and slowly makes his way to your office. You can lure him to a previous camera by holding your flashlight on them. Since he's a moth, he's attracted to the light. He only has 1 penalty, Aggressive Roy, which will just make you have to hold the light for longer to get him to move. Overall, very solid character, and not too annoying to handle until his AI value gets really high. A tier. Silly is kinda silly. Fuck, editor, cut that out. Silly is my favorite vent animatronic. He moves around the cameras, who gives a fuck? Eventually, he'll enter one of your vents. When he does, all you have to do is hold the flashlight on him before he enters your office and eats your butt. He also only has 1 penalty, Aggressive Silly, which makes you hold the flashlight on him for longer. Very simple character, he makes sound cues, I like sound cues, S tier. Next up, we've got Bop. She's an interesting, ADHD-riddled little fuck. When you pull down the camera, there's a chance she'll be standing in your window. She will then dash towards either of your doors. Simply close that door before she gets to it. She has 3 penalties. Layered Square will make Bop charge your doors multiple times. Bop Spawn will cause Bop to be able to spawn at your window even if the camera is down, and Force Down will make Bop force your camera down if it is up. A character that requires quick reaction time, and when more characters get added can be easily missed. E tier. Venus is a fucking plant. Oh, you want to know what they do? Sure, that's fair enough. Venus will sit in the kitchen the entire night like your mom in the middle of the night looking for more food, even though she ate 65% of dinner that night. Throughout the night, bunnies will spawn in your room and you'll have to click on them to collect them. You then feed these bunnies to Venus in the kitchen camera. Very fucked up, Venus. These bunnies are cute. Venus has a hefty 4 different penalties, actually being one of the highest in the game. Wabbit hunting will make the bunnies in your office jump around, making them harder to click. Except they're still not hard to click, so it's not that bad. Depopulation will make the bunnies spawn less frequently. Wanderer will make Venus randomly move around your cameras instead of camping the kitchen. And Mako will add Venus's friend Mako into your office. If you click on him, you'll die. Venus is very fun to play with. Their mechanic is satisfying, clicking on the bunnies is fun, and even most of their penalties aren't too bad. S tier. Cyrex is the next character we need to talk about, and I absolutely hate her. She starts in the ticket booth and slowly makes her way to your office. Before she gets to your office, you'll have to go to the ticket booth camera and call her to your office manually and then put the mask on. If she gets to your office by herself, I'm assuming you can guess what happens. And if you couldn't have already guessed, her penalties aren't much better. Rising aggression makes her make you put the mask on longer the longer you take to call her to your office. And call tracker will randomize the camera the call button is on every time you use it. This character is Torment. This character is Anguish, F tier. Next we have Ellie, another character so potently AIDS I fear even talking about her. Her goal is to chew the wires in the storage room to cut your power. You will have to watch for her in either hall. When she's in one, you must make sure the door on that side is open and shake a box of snacks on that side of the office to lure her inside of the office. She will leave shortly thereafter. If your office door isn't open when you lure her, she will bang on the door and drain your power. She also has 3 penalties if this didn't already sound terrible enough. Shaker will force you to shake the bag of treats longer. Power Chomper will make Ellie drain more power when she bangs on your door, and Wind Skip will make her able to teleport from one hall to another without ever appearing in your window like she usually does. I don't think I have to explain why this character is awful to deal with. The rules that go along with her are far more complicated than any other character, F tier. The next character we have to begrudgingly talk about is Ammo. Ammo starts in the dining room and will slowly wander to your right door. Each camera he travels through will have an eject button with 2 power. Before Ammo reaches your office, you must press the eject button on any camera that has the eject power, which will then send him back to the dining room. Once a camera is out of power, there's no way to get it back. If this wasn't terrible sounding enough, you haven't even heard of his 3 penalties yet. Quiet Ammo will remove his sound cue when he moves. Single Take only allows each room to have 1 eject power instead of 2, and Demon adds Ammo's friend, Demon, who will randomly move around the ejectable cameras. If you eject a camera Demon is on, you will die. I hate this character. Dealing with him can be bad on higher AI values, but since he's nowhere near as bad as some of the other characters in this game, I'm putting him in D tier. And here we are, 29 pages into my script later, and we can talk about the final animatronic in this game, Swagman. Swagman has a pretty interesting mechanic I've actually never seen before. He will randomly wander around the cameras. You will have to stare at him to fill his swag meter up. If it goes all the way down, he will make you put the mask on for a long ass time. However, this mechanic isn't as bad as I'd usually say it is, because you can easily tell which camera Swagman is on because he lights it up. So, what about his 3 penalties? Well, Swagalicious makes him move from camera to camera faster, which can get annoying. Endless Swag will force you to put the mask on for the rest of the night if Swagman gets in, and Eye on the Swag will make Swagman's meter go up slower than usual. Overall, not a bad character, and no penalty that removes the ability to see what camera he's on. C tier. And there we go. That's every single character in Too Many Nights. I love how many there are. It leads to such a new and interesting experience every time you play, and I love it. But now I'd like to mention the general penalties that aren't specific to any character, as there are a few of those as well. Generally, from what I've noticed, it's much smarter to pick the general penalties over the character penalties, as it will be much more likely that they will be easier to deal with. Overtime will make each hour of the night last 2 seconds longer, and you can actually have 2 overtime penalties active at a time. Less power will, as the name suggests, make you start each night with less power, 10% to be exact, and you can have 3 of these penalties. Less room is a penalty that will give you 1 less option when selecting animatronics, and you can have 2 of them. All-Star will make the next enemy you add start at max AI value. Stranger Danger will add a random character you don't already have at a very low AI value, and Midnight Motivation will make all characters' AI value increase at 3 AM. All-Star, Stranger Danger, and Midnight Motivation are probably going to be penalties you always want to avoid, but I personally don't think the other characters are that bad. Next up, I'd like to talk about the characters that you can unlock to play as, because if you remember, each character has different pros and cons for you to choose from. To start, each character has a different amount of lives they'll start you with. Getting jump scared by an animatronic will cause you to lose one of these lives, giving you multiple opportunities if you mess up. And of course, I'll be putting these guys on a tier list as well. The first character you will have by default is Michael. He gives you 3 hearts and has no abilities. He's as basic can get, really. D tier. You also, by default, have 3 other much more interesting characters. The first being Elizabeth. She gives you 4 hearts and forces the enemies to have their AI values increase slower. But as a con, you'll receive half the amount of coins you'd usually get. The low AI value honestly makes her pretty valuable, but of course, never being able to buy anything is never fun. C tier. Evan is the next auto-unlocked character. He gives you 3 hearts, makes all enemies start on a higher AI value, but to compensate, nets you 1.5x more coins, which will be nice for when we talk about shops later in the video. High AI values are never super great, especially if you're dogshit at FNAF games like I am, but overall, he is nowhere near the worst character to choose. C tier. Cassidy is the last character you'll unlock by default. She only gives you 1 heart and makes every single enemy start at maximum aggression, and forces you to pick a penalty every single night. She also will never allow you to see shops. Instead, you can use your money to remove penalties in animatronics. I don't care that you can remove things. Having to pick a penalty every night whilst also only having 1 heart is pure AIDS. F tier. Henry is the first character on the list to unlock. However, you can unlock them in pretty much any order you want. Henry is unlocked by beating at least 1 night while using Michael, Elizabeth, Evan, and Cassidy. Something that should be very easy to pull off. He gives you 3 hearts and gives you way more options when picking enemies, penalties, and shop items. However, you will be forced to pick more enemies and more penalties. The last thing you're going to want to do is give yourself more threats. So even though your option pool is bigger, the cons outweigh the pros here a lot. D tier. Gabriel can be unlocked by having 2 penalties active in a run that affect Freddy. He gives you 3 hearts, gives you a guaranteed shop every single night. But as a downside, each character comes with a few of their penalties already added. I'm sure you know what I'm going to say, and a lot of character-specific penalties are horrific. Sure, you may never have to pick a penalty after beating a night, but I really don't care about that as much as getting butt-fucked by character penalties. F tier. Jeremy can be unlocked by getting a power outage on night 3 and beyond and still surviving the night. Generally one of the harder characters to unlock. He gives you 5 hearts. You start the run with 500% power instead of 100%. The nights are shorter than usual, but as a downside, your power carries over from night to night. But don't let that fool you. 500% power is a lot of fucking power, and if you're good at enemy building, you can easily make that last a long time. And 5 hearts is a fuck ton. Easy A tier character. Susie will be unlocked if you die to Chica twice in a single night and then beat that night. She gives 3 hearts. Each enemy starts at max AI value, but you gain 1 life after you beat a night. Now, at first glance, this may sound really bad, but I actually had my second best run ever using Susie, and it's 100% because of that life gain. With characters always on max difficulty, there's no way for them to get harder, so you'll get used to them at their hardest difficulty pretty quickly. Sure, she's not the best, but she definitely isn't as bad as she sounds. B tier. Fritz is unlocked by having 100 or more coins at one time in a single run. He gives you 2 hearts, and your lives are attached to the number of coins you have. To be specific, for every 50 coins you have, that equals 1 heart. Overall, this character is more confusing than it will ever be useful, actively discouraging you from ever buying anything. You're better off just using Michael, as there's no real downside. D tier. Fitzgerald is unlocked by beating Night 5 in a run whilst only picking the leftmost enemies and penalties. I actually struggled a bit unlocking this character, so what does he do? Well, you start with 3 hearts, and each enemy and penalty are randomized each night, meaning the 3 enemies you pick on Night 1 will be different on Night 2, and you can also pay to reroll, as well as getting a shop every single night. This character really just serves as what I'm going to call a challenge character. You would never actually want to bring this character into a legitimate run, and because of that, I'm giving him an F tier. Sally is easily the most unique character out of all of the normal ones, and I'll explain what normal means in a bit. You unlock her by beating a night with both Percy Poodle and Rowan Rat on max AI values. Sally introduces a brand new mechanic, that being the pup pal from Playtime with Percy. It works in the exact same way as in that game, and the best part, your progress on the night is tied to it. No more waiting out the night. You will have to complete the games on the pup pal for the night to end. Again, this goes to serve as more of a challenge character than anything else, as playing Sally will by default make the game much harder, and because of this, I'm giving her F tier. Again, not because she's not a fun character, but because if you're trying to get far in a run, she's not the character for you. And finally, we have the man himself, Scott Cawthon, who is unlocked by completing Night 3 with every other character in the game. And of course, since he's the final character, he has the most interesting mechanic. He himself doesn't have any abilities, instead letting you pick the pros and cons from every other character in the game, allowing you to mix and match your favorite pieces from other characters. You don't need me to tell you that Scott is a broken character. I'm pretty sure you can figure that out. Easy S tier. And boom, that's every single playable character in Too Many Nights. So now we can start talking about the items that can be bought in the shop. I won't be going over each and every one, since there are literally a fuck ton to talk about, and this video is already long enough. But I do want to talk about some of the best ones to look out for. Early Out is an item that will make each night 2 seconds shorter. More Power will start each night with 10% more power. More Room will give you more options when picking animatronics. The Empress will give you 1 life and give you more options when picking animatronics. The Emperor will decrease every animatronic's AI value by 2. The Chariot will have you start each night with 15% more power. The Hanged Man will remove 2 random penalties you have activated. Death removes a random enemy. The Moon makes each hour 3 seconds shorter. Fritz Children's Bible will make items you can't afford never show up in shops, and Sparked will make sparks appear randomly on cameras, and touching them will increase your power. Those are all of the yummy mashed potatoes in my belly items that I like to look out for in the shop. Again, there are a lot more, but I think it would just be really boring to go over all of them. But there you go. That's everything you need to know, and as far as I'm aware, everything that Too Many Nights has to offer. I would highly recommend you give this game a try. It is some of the most fun I've ever had since starting this channel, and I actually plan on doing some Too Many Nights streams here on this channel. If that's something you're interested, let me know. Also, if you were interested, Too Many Nights is actually getting a version 2.1, and it's being worked on as I'm writing this. I'm super excited to see what it has to offer once it's fully released. This game is so incredibly unique and combines 2 of my favorite game genres of all time into one amazing game. The art style is unique, the community input is fantastic, and of course, the gameplay and gameplay loop are impeccable. But let me know what you think. Do you agree with me, or were you just completely uninterested in a game like this? Let me know in the comments below. In my FNAF 1 remake video, I asked you guys if there was a series you'd like to see me revisit, and my favorite comment was this one by I don't know who this is. They said they want to see me cover Jolly again, and that's probably the funniest thing I've ever heard, because there's no way I will ever touch that game again in a million fucking years. Maybe I'll take a look at Jolly Bees sometime in the future though. Let me know if that's something you'd be interested in the comments below. The lore of Five Nights at Freddy's fan games, something I'm typically not interested in. However, occasionally a fan game will come around that actually catches my attention, and the game we'll be covering today is one of those games. However, I actually didn't care about the story at all until I got to the third game. That's right, the game we'll be talking about today is a big one. 3 games in total to go over, and I promise there will be plenty of salt along the way. Join me today as we dive into the ups and downs of Five Nights at Maggie's. Maggie's doesn't throw us into a story right away, instead just starting how the original FNAF begins, with a newspaper of a job notice for a security guard. We take the job, not knowing who our character is, and jump right into the first night, where we can already talk about a game mechanic choice that I can't quite wrap my head around. First, let's talk about the office. It's so incredibly simple that it is somehow more basic than the Five Nights at Freddy's 1 office. You have 2 directions you can turn. One direction has the cameras, and the other side has a single door. Now let's talk about the mechanic that makes me question what the developer was thinking. How do you think the camera system operates? Maybe a camera map with buttons, maybe using the arrow keys to surf through the cameras. All wrong. You have to use the number keys on your keyboard. I have to use the number keys? Really? That's awful. I actually have to use, I can't touch the buttons with my mouse. Let me tell you why this is so awkward. Because of your flashlight. Your flashlight is used to flash the doorway behind you and the vent underneath your desk. Your flashlight is controlled by your control key, and of course, because it's a FNAF game, you have to use your mouse for everything. So you have one hand to use 8 of your number keys and the control key. This leads to an overall awkward controlling experience, but that could just be a nitpick. It was just the first thing I noticed. Now, to talk about the characters that Night 1 introduces. Let's start with the main character herself, Maggie. Maggie is as basic as you can get in this game. Spoiler alert, all of these characters are basic. Maggie will move around the cameras and eventually make her way to your door. When she's there, all you have to do is hold the door closed until you hear her leave. This is where you'll notice something interesting about this game. There is no power system in this game. And if you think that it will be balanced somewhere else so that this generosity isn't easily abused, you would be wrong. You can hold the door closed the entire night. But we'll talk about the strategy of this game a bit later. The next character introduced on this night is Lola. Lola does the exact same thing as Maggie in the exact same way. You got you got an hourglass going. Lola is the best. In bed? What is wrong with me? She even goes through the exact same cameras and is also dealt with by using the doors. Something you'll notice about later nights is that Maggie or Lola is pretty much consistently in your hallway at all times, leading to you needing to hold the door closed pretty much the entire night, forcing you to look at this stupid fucking John McAdam in the fucking eyes. The final character introduced on Night 1 is Chanchy, the fat-ass pig, aka your mom. Chanchy has a random chance to appear on any camera whenever you switch to one, acting exactly as Phantom Chica. If you look at him for too long, he will fuck your shit up like my buddy fucks up grilled cheese sandwiches. And let me tell you, that guy eats the shit out of grilled cheese sandwiches. However, once we talk about the ultimate strategy a bit later, you'll quickly learn how Chanchy will pretty much never be a problem. Overall, if you know how to use your noggin a little bit, you may notice that all 3 of these characters can be dealt with by just holding the door closed the entire night and never doing anything. Hold your left click down, take a nap for 6 minutes, and then we'll start talking about Night 2. Night 2 introduces the final 2 characters this game has to offer. That's right, guys, it's about to get crazy. Not really, but let's talk about these 2 new assholes. Let's begin with Hank. Hank will try to enter the vent underneath your desk. Once he's there, he'll make a sound cue. Simply look under your desk and flash him with your light and he'll go away. However, there is a chance he will stay in the vent instead of going back to the stage, except the side effect is he will still make a sound cue when you have to flash him again, so this really isn't as scary as it sounds. Flower is the other character added on this night, and guys, come in real close for me. Would you believe me if I told you Flower was exactly the same as Hank? Well, guess what? She is. Quite literally the exact same mechanic. So nothing too much you'll have to worry about. There you go. That's every character in the game. Just kidding. I actually lied to you. There is one final character we have to talk about, except here's the thing. I don't know its name. I think it's Guppy, but that could be entirely wrong. Guppy appears on the cameras in camera 3. Guppy acts as this game's Foxy. You will have to watch him on the cameras to prevent him from moving. If he gets up and leaves, guess what? Dead. Ass souffle. However, since every main night after this one doesn't add anything new, it's time we talk about this game's disgustingly broken strategy. So, stay focused because it's super complicated. Basically, once the night starts, instantly turn to camera 3 to stall Guppy. Then turn around and hold the door closed, even if nobody is there. If at any point you hear a vent noise, quickly turn around and flash the vent, then turn back around and hold the door closed again. There you go. You've just beat the game. This strategy successfully stalls Guppy, ignores Chanchy since you're never switching cameras, keeping the doors closed long enough that nobody will ever get in, and will handle the vent animatronics more than adequately. Nights 2, 3, 4, and 5 can all be handled using this strategy. This is by far this game's biggest downside. It is so easy that it's boring. The majority of this game is spent staring at this stupid fucker's face. I hate this guy's fucking smile. Look at this piece of shit. Ugly ass, fuck ass boy. John McAdams. More like John McFat-ums. Am I right or am I right? Yeah, I'm right, I know. You guys can laugh. No, you can laugh, it's okay. It's okay, I know I'm funny, it's okay. Now, you might have noticed I mentioned that strategy only works up to night 5, and that's because I lied again. There's another character we have to talk about that's integrated on night 6. I don't know his actual name, and fuck you, I'm just gonna call him Porky since that's what I called him in my playthrough, which you can see over on my second channel, Dxtr Black. Porky Pig acts as this game's final boss character. Night 6 is impossible. Kind of. Porky Pig can attack both your door and your vent. He also moves at the speed of fucking sound. He will go from your door to your vent in the span of 2 seconds. Now, here's where it gets impossible, and the funny story that goes along with this. So, here's the hilarious extra mechanic with Porky. He can actually be at your door and in your vent at the exact same time. If he's at your door and you close it, you will hear him in your vent. Not there's a chance. No, you will hear him attack your vent. So you might think you should flash him in the vent. So you go to turn around. But the moment you let go of your door, you get fucked. What the fuck, dude? What the fuck is that? I hear the vent noise. I did not hear noise hearing him enter the hall. He's in the hall. If I open the fucking door, it doesn't matter where he is in the hall. He just fucking kills me. Since once again, he will be in both places at the same time. Dxtr, that doesn't sound very fun at all. Well, listen to this. Apparently, I played a version of the game where Night 6 was broken, as I received a comment from the game's developer telling me so. So yeah, that's pretty interesting. So what actually happens if you beat Night 6? We get one final newspaper article explaining that the owner of Maggie's, Robert Madden, was found dead in his office from a shot to the head. Of course, since we were the only ones left in the building, we are the main and only suspect. We also learn in this newspaper that our name is Stephen Cadell. The article finishes off by informing the public that the pizzeria's new owner will be Robert's son, who isn't named. Now, I don't know about you guys, but this seems like the perfect murder for a son who really wants to take over his father's restaurant. I'm not throwing any fingers, but I'm just saying, I wouldn't be surprised if that's what this ends up being. Now, you may think I got through this game really quickly, and that's because I did. Five Nights at Maggie's 1 is an incredibly easy and boring game. However, it does pave the way for the super interesting story that the rest of the series tells. So, if you can get over that, then we can talk about Five Nights at Maggie's 2. And I promise, these games are only going to get more and more interesting. Let's dive down the rabbit hole. Five Nights at Maggie's 2 is significantly more interesting than the first game in terms of actual gameplay. To start, there are more than 2 things to look at. This time, on your desk, you have your cameras and a vent. To your left, you have a big hallway, and to your right, you have Guppy sitting dead as fuck in the corner. Want to hear something really great? The cameras in this game also have vent cams. Isn't that just awesome? Just kidding, I know it isn't. In terms of new characters, there really aren't any, just the returning characters from the first game, except this time, they're all withered. Night 1 introduces 3 threats. Let's start with the most basic of the bunch, that being Maggie herself. Maggie will wander around the cameras in an attempt to get to you through the hallway on your left. Once she enters your hallway, she will make a sound cue letting you know that she is there. When she is, you will have to turn to the hallway, pull up your shock button, and shock the hallway to make her piss off. Except you want to hear something really funny? Maggie has the chance to not leave the hallway when you flash her. Why? Because fuck you, I guess. I really dislike blatant RNG mechanics like this in games. It's the same reason why I hate Five Nights at Freddy's 3 and its bullshit 1 in 7 dick that it pulls. So maybe you don't want to have to deal with the chance of that RNG AIDS. Can you stop Maggie from reaching your hallway? Well, yes, actually you can. Inside of the cameras, you will find a play sound button, which, as the name suggests, will emit a sound on whichever camera you use it on. Maggie does not like this sound, so if you use it on the camera she's on, she will move backwards. Except I actually just lied to you. Remember how I said this was a way to avoid the stupid fucking RNG that Maggie pulls at the door? Well, guess what, fucker? That's right, she pulls the same RNG bullshit in the cameras too, except somehow it's even worse. Maggie has a chance to move forward a camera instead of backwards a camera when the sound button is used, actually making her progress to your hallway even faster. Isn't that just what you want? Hey, I just fucking sounded you, asshole. Don't act like I wasn't on top of that shit. So the way to deal with Maggie comes down to just completely ignoring her in the cameras and letting her attack your hallway, since you're going to have to deal with the RNG regardless. You might as well just put your focus somewhere else and only focus on her when you hear her in the hall. The second character Night 1 introduces is Chanchy. Wanna guess what he does? If you said the exact same thing as Maggie, you'd be absolutely right. And the best part? He also has the chance to be a complete dickhead and ignore everything all the time. Want to shock him out of your hall? Well, maybe he's feeling like keeping his fat ass right there. Want to prevent him from parking his fat ass right there with the sound button? Well, maybe he's feeling like getting to your hallway even faster. Fuck it. Okay, fine. So another character that's better off being ignored until an attack. That's not so bad. What about the final threat, Dxtr? Is that one any different? Yes, actually. The final threat introduced on Night 1 is Guppy. I fucking hate Guppy so much it isn't even funny. If you remember, Guppy is in the office with you to your right. Throughout the night, Guppy will try to... how do I say this? Slide his fingers down your crack? Hey, back the fuck up. Back the fuck up, Miss Missy. I tabbed out of the fucking game. The way you stop him is simple. Occasionally check on him and flash your flashlight at him to make him move backwards. The reason why I hate him so much, he makes no noise whatsoever. Not a single peep from this motherfucker right here, and he moves fast, especially on later nights. This guy is so fast, it's infuriating. And because he makes no noise, he's even easier to forget about. I hate him. He is buns. Hot ass, shitty robot. But overall, Night 1 isn't too bad. So let's move on to Night 2, which introduces 3 new threats: Hank, Flower, and Lola. Let's start with Hank and Flower since they both do the exact same thing. These two take advantage of your vents, crawling through them to attack you via the giant vent directly in front of you. If you see them in the vents, you can close whichever vent they're in. When you do, they too can choose to RNG fuck your ass instead of cooperating. The ideal situation will have them go back to the stage, but in all likelihood, it's much more common for them to go nuh-uh and just move to another fucking vent. Isn't that just so awesome? What's the point of even closing the fucking vent if they're just gonna phase through it? Fuck it, I don't care. Here's something really sick about these guys. Once they enter the big vent, that doesn't mean you lose. If they get to the vent in front of you, if you just stare at them for a few seconds, they will go back to the stage. So this brings up another flaw in this game's design. Using the close vent door button is completely useless against these two, because you can deal with them so much more easily by just allowing them to attack and looking at them. So why even bother checking the vent cams for them at all? Well, whatever. What about Lola? What could she do? Well, she acts as a Phantom Chica type of character. She will appear on the cameras randomly. If you stare at her for too long, she will pile drive towards your office through your vents to attempt to kill you. However, you may have noticed a slight flaw. We've already established that there is no need to check the cameras whatsoever. Maggie and Chansey are easily dealt with by letting them attack the hallway, and Hank and Flower are easily dealt with by letting them attack your vent. So is Lola ever a problem? No, and even if she was, when she gets to the vent in front of you, if you just literally look in any direction that isn't directly at her, she will go back to the stage. So again, yet another character that doesn't even need to be worried about. If she's in your vent, just don't look for a few seconds. Sure, she will also disable your cameras for a little bit when she attacks, but we've already established your cameras are pretty much a fucking rock, so that really doesn't matter. Something interesting about Maggie's games is that they don't have any post-night bullshit nobody cares about. So we can just get right into night 2, where we can talk about the first legitimate threat of a character, Porky Pig. Remember him? Yeah? The guy that made my version of Maggie's One Impossible? Which, by the way, I found out in this game, his name is actually Surdy. Needless to say, I already had some pretty bad blood with this guy. But how bad could he really be, right? Very. Let me just tell you, he can be very bad. Surdy can take the approach of every character we've seen so far except Guppy. He can attack both your hallways and your vents. Fuck the hallway attack, it's dealt with in the same way as Maggie and Chansey, and yes, also has the same bullshit RNG, so does his camera movements. What we really want to talk about is Surdy in the vents, because that's where he becomes a bitch. When Surdy is in the vents, you need to be in full-blown panic mode. Oh god. Oh god, oh god, oh god. Even the game knows how much of a problem Surdy in your vent is, because it literally gives you a fucking warning on your cameras letting you know exactly which camera he's in. Obviously, if there's not a brain in your head, you have to close the vent until he goes away. And now's the time I should mention how these vent doors actually work, and why they make me want to shove a pencil down my urethra and snap it in half. Since there is no power in this game, there obviously has to be some nerf to these doors, but the nerf chosen just makes me piss blood. But that also might be from the pencil, I'm not sure. If at any point you pull down the cameras, the door will open. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. What really makes me want to die is that the door will open even if you switch cameras. So when a door is closed, you're locked in looking at it until whatever is inside leaves. And let me tell you about that. These fat motherfuckers don't move a goddamn inch! Literally, these fuckers will sit there in those vents with the doors closed for what feels like a fucking eternity. And on later nights when Guppy turns into a fucking track star, it makes it really easy to clench your legs so hard your testicles shatter into 32 small ass pieces. Fuck me in my ass. I was literally turning to you. Literally was turning to you. I got stuck. I was fucked, dude. I was fucking everything had to be fixed. The sound had to be fixed. The fucking vents had to be fixed. My dick had to be fixed. Fixed as fuck. Because you can't just stare at him in the vent to make him piss off like you can with the other vent characters, if he gets to you, your onion rings. Completely Jover. But surely this game can't get any more bullshit, right? Surdy was the last character introduced from the first game, and Dxtr already said that there wasn't any new characters, and Dxtr wouldn't lie to me. He's a YouTuber, and a YouTuber has never lied before, right? Hate to break it to you, Buster. I lied. Night 4 introduces Jerry, the blue fucker. Who the fuck is Jerry? Well, let me tell you about Jerry. Have you ever thought to yourself, golly gee, one Surdy is already a headache to deal with. If only I could add another one. Well, if so, then you're in luck. Did you like one fucking Surdy in your ass? Why not two? Because that's exactly what Jerry is. Surdy 2.0. Except there's one key detail that doesn't really matter, but does just show Jerry was supposed to be the most AIDS character of all time. He's not even affected by the sound button, period. So there was quite literally no way to stop him. And he is fast, like really fucking fast. If he gets to your hallway and decides to bullshit RNG you, guess what, fucker? Game over, because by the time your shock recharges, you'll be dead. But in all honesty, that's not even the worst part. The worst part is without a doubt the fucking Tyson gay guppy over there in the corner. You piece of fucking shit! This motherfucker is so goddamn cocksucking fast it hardly seems fair! Everyone in Night 5 is so fucking fast, they will be sharding in your eyes from the moment you start the night. But the only place they aren't fast? The fucking vents that you can't look away from lest the doors open wide, allowing for any cold metallic robot to penetrate me in the ass and rupture my colon! Fuck! Fuck! Not to mention that Night 5 is so fucking loud, you won't be able to focus on the sound cues whatsoever. I gave up on Night 5. I don't care. This night was bullshit. This game was bullshit. Butt plug. Heart attack inducing fuck. So no, I didn't beat it. I'm not going to beat it. I'll beat my dick, but let's pretend like I did beat it. What happens then? Well, you get given Night 6. Which is even fucking harder. Just a full-blown ass pounding with you as the main victim. I'm glad I didn't make it this far. I'm glad I chose to piss off when I did, because the rate at which all of my teeth would have been plucked out of my skull would have been astronomical had I forced myself through this AIDS. What about beating Night 6? Has anything amazing happened? No, not really. And that's the most upsetting part. We get a final newspaper clipping explaining that the building we were in burned down for an unknown reason. The only suspect is, of course, once again us, since we were the only ones in the building at the time. We also learn that everything was salvaged in the fire and will be used for a new attraction later down the line. So that would lead you to think, how shitty was that fire that everything was salvaged? Must have been a pretty piss poor fire. Perchance a fire started by a person? Very interesting thought, dear viewer. Let's keep our theory heads turning and move on to the next game. But wait, Dxtr, what about that text that says fake ending in the corner? Well, to be honest with you, I have no idea why that's there. I've been unable to find any evidence of another ending existing in this game, and my only thought is that the third game is meant to serve as the actual true ending. Not only to the story, but to my suffering, because I actually really liked the third game, and I think you will too. So please, let's stop talking about this fucking slop and move on to something a lot more appealing in Five Nights at Maggie's 3. Five Nights at Maggie's 3 is nothing short of a masterpiece, truly a stark contrast from the two games we've touched on so far. I was honestly incredibly surprised by the amazing step up in quality that this game brought to the table, not only in terms of story, but also in terms of graphics, and most importantly to me, game mechanics. To start, Maggie's 3 opens to a repair minigame. We're tasked with charging up Maggie. We have to open up her chest, snip some wires, and charge them up. Seems simple enough. You'll notice during this minigame that you're able to turn around to see a dark void of a room behind you that you can flash with your light. But you'll also find that nothing is ever there. After charging up Maggie, we're shown 7 rectangles. One of them fizzles out, symbolizing what I can only assume to be the souls of some dead children, even though child murder hasn't even been mentioned in this series so far. But we're not done yet. We're tossed into a minigame directly after this. A man covered in blood walks into a room, explains he needs to hide again, saying he's trapped here and he won't go anywhere. Not knowing who he is, we're thrown into Night 1. Night 1 actually only introduces one threat, that being Lolo, a new character. But before we can start talking about characters, we need to talk about this office and the tools at our disposal. We have 2 doors. Finally, something we can be familiar with. These work the exact way you'd expect them to, so nothing weird there. Of course, we have our cameras, but you might notice something a little bit different about them. There are 3 menus to surf through on your monitor, and only one of them are your typical cameras. The other menus are your main vent and your breakers. The main vent allows you to look at and shine the main vent, and the breakers allow you to remotely turn off the power to the entire building and specific cameras. But we'll talk about why those are important later. The final interesting mechanic is the vent door button on one of your cameras, but that will become important once we talk about two certain rascals later in this video. For now, we have to talk about Lolo. Lolo is as simple as a character can get. He is this game's Bonnie. He will move through the cameras and approach your right door. When he's there, simply close the door until you hear him leave, and bada bing bada boom, that cycle will repeat. Again, it's night 1. I don't think you expected anything crazy. Now we can talk about the post-night 2 repair minigame. This time having to repair Bob. Side note, every character in this game aside from 2 are brand new. Same formula as the last minigame, except this time there's actually something in that darkness behind you. Surdy. But this time, it's just his endoskeleton. No mom skin. Your mom specifically. Get it? Because she's a pig? Oink. He will slowly try to creep up on you to kill you. Whenever you hear him, simply turn around and hold your light on him to make him go back. He's very slow these first few nights, but trust me, these minigames can get a little out of control on later nights. After completing the minigame, another rectangle fades away and we get another 8-bit cutscene. This time we see 2 men. One of them goes to make coffee while the other sits to read the newspaper. He begins to read about a serial killer dubbed the Frankenstein. Hearing that name makes the man at the counter freeze. He knows something. After 8 years of silence, the serial killer has re-emerged, taking the life of a 16-year-old boy. The body was found in the John McAdams warehouse, the same building that Five Nights at Maggie's 2 took place in. The man reading the newspaper, named Steve, mentions he thought John himself was the killer, but thinks that it could maybe be his son Henry, who had apparently been missing. He mentions Henry killed someone, but before he can get out exactly who he killed, the man at the counter, named Aaron, asks him to leave. After Steve leaves, Aaron goes over to the table to look at the newspaper, mentioning how he didn't stop and that this isn't over, not mentioning who he actually is. And with that, we go right into Night 2. Night 2 introduces 4 new animatronics. However, it's actually really only 3, and I will obviously be explaining why, since I'd be a pretty shitty reviewer if I didn't. To start, let's talk about Rolf. A very stupid name, by the way. Rolling on the floor laughing ass animatronic. Damn, he got a dick on him though, look at that! Rolf is the first character to take advantage of your main vent camera. You will be able to hear him enter it. Thank God for sound cues. They're honestly probably my favorite part of FNAF games at this point. When you hear him in the vent, simply go to it and hold your light on him until he goes away. Very simple character with a very simple mechanic. But in my opinion, the simple mechanics are the best mechanics, because it allows for your whole roster to not feel completely unfair while dealing with all of them. The next character introduced is Bob the Pig. He works the exact same way as Lolo, except he attacks your left door instead of your right. Really nothing else super interesting to note for this character, just this game's Chica. The other 2 characters introduced on this night are Esther and Lester. These 2 animatronics always stay together, which is why I say they're really just one animatronic. They take advantage of the other vent that you can't see on camera 7. Once again, they make a sound cue when they're trying to enter the cam 7 vent. All you have to do is close the vent on that camera and they will quickly go back to their stage. Again, incredibly easy characters to deal with, but from my personal experience, were the easiest to miss. Night 2's post-night repair minigame has us fixing up Lolo. Nothing special. But I do want to talk about the cutscene that Night 2 brings. 2 siblings named Henry and Stacy stop outside of a Maggie's location. Yes, this is the Henry that was mentioned in last night's cutscene. They had a conversation about their mom who died after Stacy was born. It's revealed that their dad works a lot, but we're not told what. It's also hinted that their dad doesn't love Henry in the same way that he loves Stacy. Night 3 introduces the first real, honest threat I think this game has. That being this funny-looking green fellow. You want to take a guess at what his name is? If you said Chomper, you'd be completely fucking wrong because his name is Cracky. Excuse me? Cracky? What a fucked up name. I don't actually know literally any of these characters' names. I know Maggie and I guess Bob now. I'm gonna guess this is Crackle. Fucking on Crackle. I know, I'm hilarious. What can I say? This is what I do for a living. I play Five Nights at Freddy's for a living. For a job. This is my job. Isn't that weird? That's fucking weird. Oh, whatever. Why do I feel this guy is actually a threat? Well, that's because he is this game's first integration of a watch me on the camera mechanic. A mechanic that, if you're familiar with my channel, you know I'm not a huge fan of. You cannot allow Cracky to leave the stage or you will be split open like a double wide surprise. That is fucked, by the way. This looks so fucked. Obviously, all you have to do is stare him down on the cameras, which is not very challenging. But because of a certain character we'll talk about later, Cracky will very quickly become a big problem that you will probably forget about. I want to use this time to talk about the power situation in this game. Being the first in the series to actually use power, I was a bit nervous this would be another SCP endurance case where you have absolutely no power throughout the entire game. But to my surprise, it was actually the complete opposite. You actually have a ridiculous amount of power in this game. So much so that for the first few nights, I had the cameras up the entire night, while also closing the Cam 7 vent the entire time as well, and still completed the night with a decent amount of power remaining. You do not have to think about power conservation in this game, which I really appreciate. Night 3's post-night repair minigame has us repair Cracky, and it's on this night that Surdy really starts to get quick. So this is probably the point of these segments where they will start to take a long time to complete. The cutscene that plays after this segment is one of the most disturbing I've seen since Five Nights at Candy's 3. Stacy and her dad are in the dark talking to one another. Stacy mentions how scared she is. Her dad gives her a sleeping pill, explaining that after she wakes up, she'll feel better than she ever has before in a brand new body. After Stacy falls asleep, a shock lights up the room, revealing that Stacy had been electrocuted to death. Attempting to cement her soul inside of one of the machines, his experiment fails, and he's left to cry alone inside of the room with his daughter's corpse. This is easily one of the most disturbing things I've ever seen come out of a FNAF game. Not because of what we directly see, but because of the idea of what John did to his own flesh and blood. Five Nights at Maggie shows proof that you can tell stories about incredibly horrendous things in an interesting and not overtly edgy way. With all of the shortcomings I feel this game series has, I can easily say that the story is not one of them. Moving on to Night 4, we're introduced to the two final characters this game has to offer, Maggie and of course, Surdy. Let's start with Maggie since she's simple. She works in the exact same way that Rolf does. She attacks through your main vent. All you need to do is hold a flashlight on her and she'll go away. Now we can talk about the big bastard himself, Surdy, who once again, in this game is just an endoskeleton. This guy right here is this game's big challenger. Surdy makes use of your breakers. Occasionally, he will appear on any camera in the building. When he does, he will emit a loud sound. You will have to shut off the breaker to the room he's in, which will deactivate him. This is not difficult. What is difficult is when Surdy is paired with Cracky. With how frequently Surdy will attack, Cracky will very easily be able to get several movement opportunities in on you, leading to you needing to stare at him for longer while the rest of the cast does all of their bullshit. But once again, because of how simple everyone's mechanics are, it serves to make this game tense, but not overtly difficult. Don't get me wrong, I think it's great that max modes exist, and that people are pushing the limits of what's possible with Five Nights at Freddy's games. But not every game needs to be the most difficult thing on planet Earth. Some games just really want to tell a story, and I can appreciate this game for doing so. After beating Night 4, we repair Rolf, and of course get a new cutscene. Henry, now with the alias Stephen Cadell, which if you remember is the name of the player we played as in the first Maggie's, walks into the CEO of Maggie's office with a gun. The CEO, if you remember, named Robert Madden. He reveals he knew that his real name was Henry, reveals that he knows what Henry did, and admits he still never fired him for fear of tarnishing the brand for hiring a fugitive. I'll dive into exactly what Henry did when I talk about the lore later in this video. Henry demands to get his father's experiment files, and when Robert refuses, Henry shoots him in the head. This is the situation that was mentioned at the end of Five Nights at Maggie's 1. Night 5 introduces nothing new, just being a harder version of Night 4. After completing it, you fix both Esther and Lester, and of course, we get another cutscene, which is also pretty disturbing in nature. John McAdams, expecting to see his son home by 11, is still working on his project. Henry, his son, walks in at 12 completely plastered. Henry begins to gaslight his father for not caring about his own children, and claims that he's responsible for killing Jason, a brother that up until this point we hadn't heard of. John reveals that he used his animatronics to revive his children from the dead because he loved them. Henry, not knowing any of this had been taking place up until this point, is obviously incredibly upset. Henry ends up killing his father in a fit of rage, and John McAdams' soul is accidentally revived in the animatronic of Surdy. That's right, the final boss of the first two Maggie's games was Henry's dad. So now we have to question, why would his dad be trying to kill him? Once again, Night 6 adds nothing new, just being more difficult than the last. The repair minigame, however, is different. There are no more characters to repair. The only character who remains is Surdy. You must wait for him to appear behind you and shock him. After shocking Surdy, we get something I never expected when I first started playing these games. We get an amazing monologue right up there with the Henry speech from Pizzeria Simulator. I don't want to explain it to you, I'd rather you listen to it. But before I show you it, I think it's time I finally dive into the lore of this game. Our story begins on May 25th, 1975. John McAdams, founder of John McAdams Entertainment, discovers what he believes to be immortality. He hides his experiments behind his company, using the animatronics as a cover for something much more horrifying: the merging of human life with machines. And what better way to test that theory than on your own son? Jason McAdams, age 3, becomes John's first experiment. On June 3rd, 1978, the experiment works. Jason's body moves again, but not like a human. He's primitive, lifeless, hollow. John calls him a success, a prototype, the first step towards eternal life. But it's not enough. John continues his work, kidnapping orphans, experimenting on them, filling his creations with broken souls. The police start investigating, but John's too careful and nothing sticks. Everything he's done stays buried until tragedy strikes his own family. On June 2nd, 1981, John's daughter Stacy is hit by a car after chasing a balloon into the street. She's brought back to her father, barely alive, and John sees another chance. He tries to revive her using the same process that brought Jason back. It fails, and what's left of Stacy dies in his arms. In Five Nights at Maggie's 1, you can actually hear John crying during one of the tapes. That is this moment. A year later, everything falls apart. On August 26, 1982, John's last surviving son, Henry, comes home drunk, furious, covered in stains, and done with his father's bullshit. He accuses John of killing his siblings, of caring more about his machines than his family, and for once, he's right. John tries to justify it, saying he only wanted to bring them back, that he did this because he loved them, but Henry heard enough. He kills his father right then and there, but death doesn't stick in this family, because the next day, John wakes up again inside the Surdy animatronic. His experiment worked, but at the cost of his own humanity. The man who wanted immortality finally got it, but in the most twisted way imaginable. Years pass, and Henry goes into hiding under a new name, Stephen Cadell. On May 3rd, 1985, he takes a job at Maggie's Magical World as a night guard, seemingly just looking for cash. But through old VHS tapes, he learns the horrifying truth. His father is still alive inside Surdy. Henry tracks down Robert Madden, the new CEO of John McAdams Entertainment, and demands his father's research. Robert admits he's known who Henry really is this entire time, but never fired him because it would tarnish the company's image. So Henry does what the McAdams family does best. He kills him. He stands on business. But even that isn't the end. In 1992, a new serial killer surfaces. The media calls him the Frankenstein. Victims are found mutilated, fused with machine parts, and all signs point to one name: John McAdams. Somehow, he's still out there, using the Surdy suit to continue his experiments. Henry, now under yet another alias, Aaron Meyer, realizes his father will never stop, and if he can't destroy him, he has to contain him. But this story isn't just about the McAdams family. Around the same time, another branch of the company is causing problems of its own. Back in 1980, two men were hired to perform as Springlock entertainers at a restaurant called Surdy and Jerry's. They were taught how to use the suits by Daniel Gennaro, the son of the restaurant's founder, Manuel Gennaro. When Manuel died, Daniel took over and rebranded the place into Guppy's Magical World, adding new characters like Cracky and Guppy. Everything was fine until 1988, when both performers suffered Springlock failures live on stage. One jumped off mid-performance, the other tried to save him, and both ended up crushed inside their suits. They die instantly, only to possess the animatronics they performed in. Daniel, being the charming piece of shit he is, mocks their death, saying the only real problem the company would ever have is if kids went missing. And sure enough, soon after, they do. Surdy and Jerry, now possessed, start killing children, souls that would later inhabit Maggie, Lola, and Chanchy in the first two games. Eventually, in 1990, a sister location called Maggie's Magical World opens and the pattern repeats. More kids vanish, and an investigator, our playable character, takes a job trying to uncover the truth. Each night, we explore a different location, finding drawings, blueprints, newspaper clippings, everything pointing towards what's really been happening behind the scenes. By night 4, we find a hidden room behind the show stage. It's filled with evidence and notes from a previous investigator, the same one who went missing. When we report everything to our boss, he fires us, calls us crazy, and closes the case. So we leak the evidence online, the internet takes over, and the investigation reopens, exposing both Maggie's and Guppy's for what they really were. It's later revealed that everything we did, everything we learned, was told to us by Surdy himself. He's old, broken, but aware. A robot reflecting on his past life, telling us how everything fell apart. It's one of the most haunting story choices in any Five Nights at Freddy's game I've ever seen. But it's not just about what happened, it's about who's left to remember it. Decades pass. It's now May 10th, 2021. Henry McAdams returns one final time to the same company that destroyed his family. But this time, he's not there to work. He's there to end everything. Having studied his father's research, Henry manipulates Surdy's systems to lock his father's soul inside of the metal shell permanently. No voice, no movement, no escape. After nearly half a century of murder, obsession, and tragedy, John McAdams is finally forced to face eternity, the very thing he was chasing all along. And that's what makes this story so fascinating. Five Nights at Maggie's isn't just another FNAF clone. It's a full-blown tragedy about legacy, obsession, and consequence. A father chasing immortality, a son chasing redemption, and both of them becoming monsters in the process. It's poetic, it's grim, and for a fan game, it's shockingly well told. John McAdams may have discovered immortality, but in the end, he lost everything that made him human. And Henry, he may have stopped his father, but he had to become just like him to do it. So, before we listen to that final monologue, just remember this. No one in this story found eternal life. They just found eternal suffering. 19 years. 19 years trying to stop you. 19 years studying your findings. Your horrible experiments. The immortality you were seeking all this time. And I did it. I made it work. Let me tell you, I was about to give up, but you made a bad choice to try it one last time. Lester Arias. That death, that was the last straw. That's how I knew that you were not going to stop, not even in that body. I've been studying your blueprints and analyzing your tapes for longer than I can remember. And let me tell you, you made quite a few mistakes. Yes, you did achieve immortality with full consciousness in your body. But still, your movements were limited. Being sensitive to light, to sound. I thought John McAdams was smarter than that. Don't worry. Your son, the failure, the disgrace to the family. fixed all those problems for you, and finally made it work. Or something like that. You see, I didn't want the kids to be in those bodies. They deserved a better life. They deserved a normal childhood. Play with kids their age, go to school, and socialize like normal human beings. You took that away from them a long time ago. They deserved to rest, once and for all. Jason and Stacy, they are resting from the hell you put them through. All of them finally free. But for you, I had a very special plan. I didn't know if I should show all the things you've done to the world. On one hand, it would have brought peace to the people who were still terrified of the dreaded Frankenstein. But I decided to keep your reputation intact. You are still the great John McAdams. To some extent. Most people have forgotten you after the company went under a couple of years ago. I knew that if I brought this to light, your name would make a comeback, and I didn't want to give you the pleasure. That's why I decided to grant you your wish of immortality, but with a little twist. I wanted to make sure you feel the hell that you put Jason, Stacy, and all the other kids through. So, I added a few changes. You won't be able to speak. You won't be able to move. You will have no control over your body. You will still see, feel, and hear everything. You will live for eternity inside that machine with nothing more to do but see how your work, your name, and your wish of being remembered like some kind of god vanishes like the figments of some bad dream. You won't rest. You will suffer for eternity. It's time you pay for your sins, John. And there you have it. As far as I'm aware, that is everything that Five Nights at Maggie's has to offer. A game series that started off on a sour note for me and ended up becoming one of the most interesting and engaging stories I've ever experienced. I'd highly recommend you give the third game a try, as it is actually a very enjoyable game. The jump in quality between these games is astonishing, and it's so clear that the developer poured everything they had into it, and that's something I can totally appreciate. But let me know what you think. Do you agree with me, or do you think that this series was actually complete perfection the entire way through? Let me know in the comments below. In my SCP Endurance video, I asked you guys who your favorite SCP was and why. My favorite comment was this one by Maincrack. They said SCP-001, and I agree. Honestly, one of the coolest SCPs ever designed, and of course, an absolute classic. What do you think is the most underrated Five Nights at Freddy's fan game ever made? A series that is so amazing you'd think it'd be talked about everywhere, but when you go to check, it seems like nobody has ever even heard of it. The game we'll be covering today is one of those games for me, and when doing research for this video, especially when talking about the lore, I found it incredibly difficult to piece it together because of how little information there seems to be about it. But rest assured, I think I've got it figured out. The game we'll be covering today is Project Readjusted, a FNAF fan game with one of my favorite stories of all time. Sit back, relax, and let's jump into this amazing trilogy together. The first big change I noticed in Project Readjusted from most FNAF games is the way the phone calls were handled. Rather than having the phone calls take place inside the game, this game instead chooses to have us listen to the phone call before we even load into the office, instead giving us a still image to look at showing the characters we will be seeing on each night. I'll admit it's unique, however, I think I'd personally prefer to be able to mess around with the cameras, mechanics, and so on while the phone guy is talking, and just have to make sure nobody moves while that's happening. I feel that's a much better way to utilize the first phone call in a FNAF game. The first phone call doesn't give out any meaningful information, really just going over how the main character Buster works, but it's my job to explain the mechanics, so I don't think I'll be letting the depressed sounding Wei Ji do that for me. Upon loading into the office, you may feel just a little cramped, and that's normal. This office is teeny tiny, like much smaller than most FNAF offices I've seen in my days. Obviously, we have a door to the office, because if we didn't, I'd question how we even got into the room in the first place. However, the interesting thing about this door is that it doesn't close. Oh, Dexter, does it not have an actual door? Like, it's just a doorway? No, there's a door. Our character just for some reason chooses not to close it. But instead of thinking that's because we're playing in the shoes of a dumbass, I'm instead going to assume it's because we're playing in the shoes of a badass who isn't scared of anything. We also, of course, have our cameras, which are very interesting to say the least. To start, they have two modes, lights on mode and useless mode, because as I'm sure you could have guessed, if the lights are off, you can't see anything. I know, groundbreaking. You'll also notice you have a camera stability percentage. What does that mean? Well, as the name suggests, it reads the percentage of your camera stability. I'm sorry, I'll stop talking like that. While on your cameras, the stability will quickly decrease. Putting the camera down will cause it to quickly increase back up. If it drops down to 0, you're gonna have to wait a while before being able to use it again. So, what about that Buster fella I mentioned earlier? How does he work? Great question, viewer of questionable stench. Buster is as basic as a character can get. I'm sure you could probably guess what he does, but it's my job to tell you. Buster will move around through the cameras with the goal of getting to your office. Once there, he'll peek his little head through the door. Using this comically large blue button on the wall of your office, you can shine a light into the doorway, revealing he has the teeth of a British person. Hold this light on him for long enough and he'll go away. Simple sugar. After night 1, we get a short cutscene. You guys seem to like the narration I did in my Maggie's video, so instead of just summarizing what happened like I would usually do, I figured why not narrate this as well. Hey, it's been a long time, you and me. We finally met ends on a good note for now. I'm only implying that our experience will be better. Now, there is something I need to tell you. I know I'm jumping to conclusions without explaining who I am, but bear with me. There is something inside this diner. Just maybe put on some type of gig to make some fool believe you to make them work here. Maybe that person will lure that thing out. I'll tell you more tomorrow, but for now, let's begin to go inside. Let's take the back alley, as it's less noticeable. Come along, we only have 5 days. Sounds like someone's trying to dupe us and use us as bait. That's not very kind, vaguely barbaric. But whatever, we're already working here. I guess it's just in our best interest to not die. Moving on to night 2, you can quickly take a little nap because the phone guy takes a billion years to talk about the new character this night adds, and ramble about some arcade machines. The new character added on this night is Old Buster. At least, that's the name that would make sense. However, this character's name is actually Redeemer. Quite literally, being an older Buster model, I can't quite wrap my head around why they chose to name him in the way they did. Redeemer makes use of your vents, something I've neglected to mention thus far. You can't really see it, but the vent is to the right of your office behind the door, so just out of sight. Redeemer does whatever he damn well pleases until he eventually decides to enter the vent. When he does, an obvious sound cue will play letting you know he's entered. Once he reaches your office, he'll dive in. When he's in your office, it's very important that you don't look at him. However, since the office we're in is so small, it may prove very difficult to just look away from him. So you'll have to be looking at your cameras while he's in your office instead. I guess Redeemer has the mindset of, if I can't see him, he can't see me. Stupid ass robot. This, however, may bring up a possible conflict. If your camera stability is too low by the time Redeemer gets to your office, it's safe to say that you wouldn't have a very good time. But luckily for us, at this point in the game, checking the cameras is entirely useless. So as of right now, this shouldn't be a problem. Hey, so I was looking around in these garbage bins and found a key. It's great, I know, the low effort put into protecting this place. Anyways, remember that idea I had, well, a few minutes ago? I got this one guy on my phone now. His name is Hayden Simmons. Pretty dumb fellow. I bet he doesn't even know of this place. Probably a high school dropout or a kid desperate for some easy cash. Well, now let's venture inside this establishment and set up an office for our buddy. So we know the name of our character, Hayden Simmons. Too bad his name is one of the rhyming Aiden names, probably the worst group of names anybody could have. That's besides the point though. It seems like the building we're working in isn't even supposed to have an office. It's clear something sinister is going on here, but we don't quite know what yet. Moving on to night 3, I'm going to spare you the details and have us skip the phone call because he explains what the newest character does in an amount of time that could be an entire video by itself. Night 3 introduces Ned. Ned is ugly, like ugly as sin. He's got a face not even a mother could love. Booger-ah, boy. He will try to make his way to your office via the long hallway in the building. Unlike Buster, he isn't a complete dumbass, so the light trick won't really work on him. What will work on him, however, is the replace machinery button that I've blatantly and purposefully ignored up until this point, because explaining it earlier really wouldn't have made a whole lot of sense, now would it? Ned has multiple stages in the hallway. Every time you use the replace machinery button, he will go back a stage. I'm sure you can figure out how this works. Push him back, wait for the button to recharge, push him back again, keep him away from your office, which would in turn keep him away from your genitals. Whoopity-doo. However, this does bring up the issue of us needing to use our cameras now. So in combination with Redeemer, Ned could end up being a big problem down the road. Alright, sorry for keeping you waiting, but I had to run back to my car to get a battery for my phone. It's pretty low percentage right now, but it'll last now. Hayden says he'll be able to work next week, which is great. We'll pay him around $150 for his work, I guess. Maybe it's considered a scam to him, but I don't care. He just said he's not a fan of night jobs, but will do it anyways, and he'll play on his phone. That's gonna go down well. Anyways, let's head inside. The Wi-Fi better not be bad inside, I swear. Not much to note from this cutscene. We know we're getting criminally underpaid, and we know that playing on our phone really isn't going to be an option, which just makes me smile from ear to ear personally. Night 4 introduces 2 new characters. However, one of them serves to be more of an annoyance than an actual threat, so we'll talk about him first. Greg is a little asshole. Really, this game's Balloon Boy. Not because he has the same mechanic, except I lied because he kinda does. His main goal is to disable your light and leave you vulnerable to Buster. He'll slowly crawl across your office. You will have to click him multiple times to make him go away. If you don't, he'll park his fat ass on the button and prevent you from using your light. You might be asking yourself, Dxtr, clicking on him? How does the game justify that making sense? Perfect question. From the way the phone guy describes it, it's just poking him. So I guess this motherfucker's just the Pillsbury Doughboy. Ticklish ass robot. The other That's so fucking stupid. The other character introduced on this night is Glancy, what I feel is this game's most frustrating character. Glancy tries to get into the back storage room and just literally fuck up everything in the entire building. Rip wires, killing your lights and your camera. So obviously something you should want to avoid. The way you do so is very easy. Remember how I mentioned the cameras had 2 states, on and useless? Well, turns out I lied, as the useless mode actually isn't useless. When Glancy gets into this back room, all you have to do is turn the camera lights off and he won't be able to see shit, making him decide to travel into another room by accident. I'd imagine it's an accident since he can't see, but he could have easily just gotten pissed off and left on his own accord. Which, if he can see where the exit is, you'd probably think he could see the wires, but I guess not. We're inside. Now, let's just put some of these cameras around the building and we'll be all set. Oh, never mind. There's a panel lying down on the shelf. Wait. You hear that? Well, anyways, you'll record calls just to convince him, Andrew. Just do a casual voice or whatever. Nice, these'll work. What the? Did I just hear walking? Wait, who are you? Andrew, run. He's looking for me. I'll see you around, friend. Dope. So we know the name of our phone guy. Andrew. Sounds like whoever is heard in these cutscenes isn't Andrew then. And apparently upon entering the building, something found them. Andrew ran, leaving whoever he was with behind, not knowing what the outcome was. Night 5's phone call actually has something interesting in it, if you could believe that. Andrew tells us that the character introduced on this night has something they want. Finally, a motive for what they're doing. Apparently this new character, Vinard, has a special chip that they really want. Andrew doesn't explain why they want this chip, but I'm sure we're gonna find out. Speaking of Vinard, what does he do? Well, he will try to hack the cameras so that you can't use them, and then wheel his way over to your office to kill you. Not sure why he has to disable the cameras to do that, but he does, I guess. Occasionally, you will see a purple error next to his camera. When you do, all you have to do is go to that camera and turn the light off so he can't see. Because like some people, he can't type without looking at the keyboard. Embarrassing. That's a talent you probably want to learn if you're on a computer all day. But that's really all he does. It really starts to show on this night how difficult this game can be, requiring you to be in the cameras very frequently. The only real chance you'll get to recharge your stability is when Buster is attacking, and I think that was on purpose for the sake of balancing, but maybe I'm being too optimistic. Unlike every other night, Night 5 doesn't have a post-night cutscene, so I can't talk about that. What I can talk about, however, is an Easter egg and a fun piece of trivia about one of the characters in this game. After completing Night 5, you will unlock Custom Night. Inside, if you set everyone to max and click the Fox plushie in your office, you'll get this jump scare. And if you're interested in something about Vinard, he's actually a character made by Mixlass, the guy that made Tyke & Sons Lumber Co. and Baby's Nightmare Circus, which I've covered on this channel before. Definitely go watch that video after you finish this one. And as a result of using Mixlass's character, Mixlass then used one of Mechless's characters in his game Tyke & Sons Lumber Co. Pretty cool if you ask me. But that is all Project Readjusted has to offer. Overall, I think the game is surprisingly mechanically complex for a first game, something pretty uncommon with fan games that take place in a series like this. But don't let the lack of lore fool you, as Project Readjusted has one of the most interesting stories I've ever seen, and it continues in Project Readjusted 2. It's been so long since I've seen Matthew. He just disappeared. I must find him again. I have so many questions. I could possibly get answers from the new Buster's location. The location is currently being renovated, but they must need some kind of guard. Could be hiding there after all this time. Well, let's see where this takes me in my hunt to find him. Project Readjusted 2 opens with a mission already in mind, finding a man named Matthew. I'm unsure who Matthew could be. My only guess at this time is it's the guy that got left behind by Andrew in the first game, but that is obviously unconfirmed as of now. Our player, Andrew, enters an old Buster's location to look for answers, throwing us right into Night 1. Loading into Night 1, we get a call from the phone guy who goes over the basics of what we'll be doing. He mentions that they're currently working on newer models of all the characters. Not a whole lot of interest to point out during this call. However, what is of interest is how scared I was when I first saw the equivalent of 3 fucking music boxes and 1 camera. But lucky us, we don't have to worry about that right now. Unlike Readjusted 1, this game doesn't have anything to stop you from staring at your cameras for as long as you'd like, which is a breath of fresh air. But that only means that this game is going to be AIDS in a different way, and we'll figure out how soon. Let's talk about the first and only threat Night 1 introduces, Cable Buster, who I'm just going to be calling Buster because I'm lazy. Buster makes use of a new mechanic this game introduces, the showtime tapes in Camera 1. When Buster gets to either Camera 5 or Camera 7, you will have to look at him. He will be repeating a day of the week. I don't know why he feels the need to say it out loud constantly. Phone guy explained that apparently that's what he's designed to do, walk around the building and inform people when the show is about to start. But why would he say the day of the week if that was the case? I have no idea. Once Buster says what day of the week the show is on, you will have to quickly go to Camera 1, set the sound file to the day of the week he stated, and play the audio track. This will cause him to meander back to Camera 1 and do a little jiggy. Just kidding, he doesn't dance. I just lied to you. Something isn't right. Papers are coming in about a missing person. A missing person at the old Buster's. It must have been the spy that Matthew took care of. He's on the prowl and I will end it in this place. There's no way I can fail this. His tracks are so hidden yet so predictable. I just need more clues. So, Matthew killed a guy, and not just any guy, he killed a spy. So clearly Matthew is probably a bad and dangerous man. So we should approach with caution. Not knowing anything else, we move on to Night 2. Night 2, the phone guy introduces some new mechanics, but fuck him, my voice sounds better. Night 2 introduces Infested Glancer. But before we talk about what he does, we should talk about the second thing our cameras can do. Show some air ducts. Hooray! The air duct menu is very reminiscent of the ones from Ultimate Custom Night. You have a radar that you can use to detect anything moving inside. Spoiler alert, Glancer is inside. You may also notice that there are 3 things you can repair. Are your FNAF 3 senses going off? Because mine are going haywire and it's making me want to off myself. The 3 things to repair are your radar, your lights, and your doors. Glancer will attack any of the 3 vents in your air ducts, all of which lead to your office. Use the radar to find where he is and close the door when he gets too close. You'll notice that you have a meter on this screen that tracks your door power. If it runs out, you'll have to reboot the doors, and of course, after too many uses of your radar, you'll have to reboot that as well. Glancer brings up a very obvious issue. He's fucking annoying, and he's very fast, easily being the most annoying character in this entire game, demanding the majority of your attention like a clingy girlfriend that you're slowly falling out of love with. And of course, the repairs in this game are some of the most frustrating mechanics I've ever had to deal with, spending the majority of my playthrough listening to that ear-grating beeping. This is where camera stalling comes into play. By staring at Glancer, or Buster if you really wanted to, you can prevent them from moving. Glancer does not initially start in the air ducts, so I'd usually spend as long as I possibly could staring at him so he didn't slip away, because once he's in those ducts is when he becomes Satan. I can't decide on what to do. This whole situation is terrible. One wrong step and I'm in jail or potentially executed. I'm not falling into that hole of guilt with no way to release it. But damn, corpse inside that Glancer suit has definitely gotta be the spy. What else would Matthew have done to the body? Thrown it out? No way. I got my evidence. Now I just have to find Matthew himself. He can't be stopped now. So apparently there's a body inside of Glancer, the spy that Matthew killed. So yeah, that checks out. It really wouldn't be a FNAF game if people weren't getting stuffed into mascot suits, would it? Night 2 introduces 2 new characters, Magic Suit and Wraith Ned. Let's talk about Ned first since he's less annoying. He's this game's version of a Phantom Chica. Occasionally, he can start to appear on one of your cameras. If you don't look away from him fast enough, he'll jump scare you and cause you to need to repair everything. Your radar, your lights, your doors, your dick. Not super annoying, just get some reflexes and you'll be fine. Magic Suit, on the other hand, is very annoying. This is the guy who thought it'd be really funny to have 3 fucking music boxes at the same time. His 3 plugs will slowly decrease in power. You'll have to keep them charged up if you don't want Magic Suit to Magic Mike you. Fuck. You'll have to keep fuck. You'll have to keep him charged up if you don't want Magic Suit to Magic Mike you. But in all honesty, these 2 new characters aren't even an issue. This entire game's main problem is Glancer. God, I hate him so much I could just stick a fork in my ass. That doesn't even make any sense, but irrational anger causes irrational responses sometimes. I don't know what to tell you. What the hell was that purple thing? Is the air in this place toxic? What the hell? Can't keep working here. I must escape before I lose my mind. I don't know what I'm going to do. I have a feeling finding Matthew won't be easy. Speaking of which, I found a tape from the old location. That Glancer suit had made itself in the backstage. How? Must have found the pieces from when the original Glancer and Glossy characters were split up and put together. I don't know how sewing those 2 together made any sense, but I guess it was good for Halloween. Scratch that. Anyways, Matthew forced that spy corpse down inside the Glancer suit while it was trying to escape. What is wrong with these chips? I feel like someone is controlling them. No way this is artificially programmed in the animatronics. It's too mobile. Now there's more than one thing I need to find out. Great. So it sounds to me that Glancer put himself together and tried to escape the building, but while doing so, Matthew stuffed a corpse of the spy inside of him. What the hell is going on? I have no idea, but hopefully some more context will come along soon. The only character introduced on Night 4 is Wraith Finn, being in my opinion the second biggest threat in this game. Finn will quietly appear in your office. Up until this point, you haven't had any reason to ever lower your camera. Well, Finn is now your reason. When he appears in your office, you will have to hold your mouse over the top half of his body until he fades away. If you don't, say hello to a fuck ton of repairs and a quick death. Something I find really weird about this mechanic is how it's explained in the game. The phone guy literally tells us to put our cursor over it.
She said she stared at what she saw, putting your cursor right on its upper half. That's kind of specific, but whatever. Just her, I guess. Anyway, good night.
I've never really seen a FNAF game be meta like this before, but I guess how else are you supposed to explain the mechanic? I suppose you could say to stare at it, but that wouldn't indicate you need to touch it with your mouse. Overall, a very goofy introduction, and a character that I forgot about so much, I think I died to him more than any other character throughout this entire franchise. Okay, I have many questions. How did that design get into this place, and how did it just fade out of existence? It was called Finn. We never got around to finishing it. It was like Buster's pal. The head was never done, but he had his other pieces done. Although I noticed this Finn had his hands gone. This place is so damn weird. This place is so damn weird. Alright, so really nothing interesting said there at all. Finn was supposed to be Buster's friend. Buster's a fucking robot. He has no friends. Moving on to night 5, as it should be much more interesting and hopefully have a more interesting post-night cutscene. Night 5 introduces the last threat this game has to offer, Wraith Vinard. A character that isn't too terrible to deal with, but will really just act to take more of your needed time away from Glancy, which is obviously not something we want. Vinard only ever appears on camera 8. Occasionally, when checking that camera, you will see Vinard's silhouette with no eyes. You will have to stare at him until his eyes appear. Once they appear, you will then have to quickly look away as if you aren't the fucking reason his eyes appeared in the first place. Something super interesting to note that I haven't mentioned so far is how these wraiths have been explained by the phone guy, being the only characters he's convinced aren't real. But you might be wondering, if he doesn't think they're real, why does he mention them? That's a good point. Apparently, the guard that worked here before us left several notes about these wraiths, and the phone guy is reading her notes to us in the phone calls. Maybe as an in case, maybe just to make fun of her. Who's to say? Either way, I find it interesting. Vinard. With legs? What is going on anymore? I can't take things seriously. Wait, no. I hear sirens. I still haven't found Matthew. And I got several people outside awaiting my arrival. Police cars. Someone found out. Someone told them. Matthew, you bastard. I will find you. You won't get away with this. I can't believe this is how my story ends. It's not right. I can't. Matthew was never found by any officials or Andrew. Andrew attempted to bring the situation to court, but not enough evidence was collected. Andrew was deemed guilty for the corpse inside Buster's Diner World and was sentenced to death row, his execution following a month after being assigned. This was not the outcome he had thought of. It could have been worse. This story is false. Well, goddamn. Quick recap. In this game, we play as Andrew, the phone guy from the first game. We still don't fully know exactly who Matthew is, but he called the police and informed them that Andrew was at the building and had killed someone. They arrived, found the body in the Glancer suit, and had Andrew killed, giving us the fake ending. Oh god, endings, Dxtr. Let's quickly go over what it takes to get this true ending, please. Well, there are several minigames you will need to complete throughout the game in order to get this true ending. Let's blast through how to get them. During each night, a specific camera will have its name flickering slightly. Clicking on the name will shoot you into the minigame. On night 1, it's the main supply camera. On night 2, it's the West Hall. Night 3, it's the secondary supply entry. Night 4, it's the secondary supply entry again. And night 5, it's the power breaker. After completing all the minigames and successfully beating night 5, you'll get the true ending instead. The minigame. It spoke the words I couldn't find myself. Matthew died with his baby. A tape left on him. I can't explain what I've experienced here. I can't go on with this sudden guilt. This damned children's entertainment chain should have never happened. This outcome was not proper. And I can't handle it. I don't know what will happen next. I'll report the death of him and the corpse to the police. At least I can get off with no charges. I can't put myself to do it. I can't go the route my gut wants me to go. Later the same night, Andrew had a heart attack. No evidence was ever turned into the police due to this. Nearly a week later, police arrived after suspicion from pedestrians roaming the streets. Police had not told any officials about what was found and began to demolish the location. Andrew's story is over. An ending to a tragic story. There are no solutions to the problem. Diner World Entertainment was shut down immediately and ran out of business, seeking a new opportunity to reach into kids' hearts. This is the true story. Well, goddamn! Turns out it didn't matter what he did. Andrew still died, and no word of Matthew was ever heard from the police. We just can't win, can we? Well, luckily for us, this storyline does continue, and even more lucky for us, it continues in the best game in the series, and arguably one of the most creative FNAF games ever designed. I know who you are, Andrew Vargas. I've seen your name in records before. I know what you're doing. You want information, lots of it. I'm no provider, but I can lead you to what you want. I know that man, Matthew, has been nothing but a mystery to you. His image is shrouded in a dense fog that your gaze cannot penetrate. But you want to break it, do you not? You can either go the full walk or fall short. There is no try this time. All the information you want to grasp so badly can be obtained. All you have to do is satisfy us. There are 3 captives full of knowledge below the storage facility. Treat them to our satisfaction, and they will live out to the 5th and final day. On that day, they will be free. They will be able to tell you all that they know. This is what you want, right? The data you seek is waiting for you. And here we are! Project Readjusted 3, the last game in the series and undoubtedly the best. This opening cutscene throws us right into the world of this twisted game. We play as Andrew. That might seem a bit confusing since Andrew died in the last game. But guess what? Apparently, both of the fucking endings weren't real. So what the fuck? I'm not joking, by the way. I'm being completely serious. Both of the endings in the second game aren't real. The true ending isn't real. Both the fake ending and the true ending both didn't fucking happen because it takes place before this one. So like, what the fuck was that all about, huh? Anyways, we're not sure who was speaking to us in that cutscene, but apparently there are 3 survivors that have all the information we need to solve whatever is going on with Matthew. And with that, we're tossed into night 1. This game does progress based on objectives instead of time. But rather than a game like Pizzeria Simulator where the tasks you have to complete are mind-numbing, the task in this game actually requires a small bit of brain power and is truly one of the most creative takes on a FNAF game I've ever seen. We're tasked with protecting these 3 captives. In the cameras, you'll be able to see 3 rooms. Each of these rooms holds one of the captives. You can keep track of their stats at the bottom of the monitor, see how much hunger, thirst, and satisfaction they're all at. Note how much supply you have. Your goal throughout this night is to send these captives shipments of food and water. Then, once they're all satisfied, the night can end. When you open the gate, food and water will slowly be dispensed. You can control which room these packages will go to. The longer you take to send a captive something, the lower their satisfaction will go. At the top of the screen, you'll see a minimum grade you need to complete the night, and which grade you're currently at. Meaning you don't have to fill each room up to its entirety to complete the night. However, I'm a fucking badass and chose to get the best grade possible on each night. In order to refill your supplies, you will have to complete a task. A set of numbers will appear in a random order and you will have to click them in that order. When you finish, your supply will be slightly filled. Side note, if you ever see this sliding minigame instead of the number 1, that's because in that specific moment, I'm using footage from Indie Fuel. And in his playthrough, he was playing an earlier version of the game that used a different minigame. And that's all that happens on night 1. I could talk about the cameras for sure, but I think that'll become much more important in night 2, which actually brings on the first and main threat this game has to offer. But before we can get to that, in true final game lore dump fashion, After each night, we get a post-night minigame to have fun with. In this minigame, we just kind of walk around. We check the stage in the main room and notice that there's supposed to be 2 animatronics on stage, the other being Finn. You may remember him from the second game. We go backstage where we believe Finn should be, only to find a dead child on the ground, bringing this minigame to a close. Something really awesome about this game is the patient hub. Dexter, what's the patient hub? If you'd shut the fuck up and watch the video like a normal person, instead of continuously asking questions like the girl you're watching a movie with that you really wish you didn't invite over because you're just trying to watch the fucking movie, I'd explain it to you. Sorry, lost my temper a little bit. Anyways, the patient hub is on the menu. Using it will actually let you go to talk to the 3 people you're protecting throughout the nights. Throughout the nights, heading to the patient hub, they will give you different pieces of information as the game goes on. On this first night, they don't tell you anything since they've been told they can't yet, probably by whoever put them here. This is such a cool and interesting integration into this game, and I think this is one of the big reasons why this game in particular is so underrated. Night 2 is where this game really starts to get real, introducing the first main threat of the game, Busted. Inside of your monitor, you'll notice the left half that I haven't really mentioned. Well, I'm about to mention it. You'll notice that it only has 3 cameras, but don't let that fool you. Busted will move around the cameras, not only trying to get to you, but to get to the captives as well. If at any point you can't find him on your cameras, that means he's in your office. Your office, by the way, is another thing I've neglected to mention. There are 4 entrances to your office, 2 on each side. You have the 2 obvious hallways in front of you, and then the 2 holes in your walls to the sides of you. Busted is very quiet, so you will have to make sure you're tracking him. Once Busted enters your office, you will have to scare him away with the light. Now, you may think, like most FNAF games, that we'd be given a flashlight, but no, that'd be too easy. In Project Readjusted 3, you're given a fucking glow stick to defend yourself. You know, one of those crack and shake things? Yeah, that's our main means of defense. When Busted is in your office, you have to hold the glow stick on him to scare him away, but there's a catch. Your glow stick cannot be used for very long at all. It has a very short lifespan, so you have to check really fucking quickly. Obviously, if you don't, you'll die. But if you remember, I mentioned Busted being able to attack the captives as well. While watching Busted on your cameras, you may notice that on any of the 3, he may get a bit too close to some of the patient doors. If he does, that's how you know he's about to attack them. When you see him doing this, you must ring the bell on your desk. The noise will attract him to your office and away from the patients. Something super interesting about Busted attacking patients is that if he kills one, you don't lose, and it will actually make the remaining nights easier since you'll have less mouths to feed. However, as I'm sure you could have guessed, if a patient dies, they will never come back throughout the rest of the game. That means no more talking to them in the patient hub at the end of the nights. And of course, if you let all 3 patients die, then you will lose the game. This right here is one of the coolest mechanics I've ever seen in a FNAF game. Project Readjusted 3 is literally just being placed in a saw trap, really. In the post-night 2 minigame, we talk with the other guards about what we saw. They mentioned this is the second time this has happened. Walking up to the stage, we find another dead child, presumably killed by Buster. We're told to check the office for anything else, and we do. Upon finding nothing, we walk back, only to see the ghost of some unknown spirit that looks like Finn walking away.
I started seeing some weird things recently. They were purple weird things. It got closer as I blinded myself, but as I looked at it, it faded away. I don't know what to do. At least the leader himself isn't down here. He is very strict. He would be looking at me, making sure I was staying put and acting appropriately. He threatened to stop liquids from coming into my room if I didn't listen. He really wants us to go his way, so just send us supplies like he wants, at least when he is nearby. As long as he doesn't notice you aren't doing what he wants, you should be fine.
This place is a crazed house, and it's all your fault. I can't believe this! You better get out of here in the end. With me alive!
I've started hearing screams. It sounded like it came from a room adjacent to mine. Maybe I'm hallucinating. After all, we are under that old building. You know it had the fume problem, right? Surely you do. You used to work there. You told us all about you. My sister used to work there, but she hasn't touched it since. I think I've figured out why now. Just don't forget about your main threat, but don't let yourself get too paranoid about it. You got this. On night 3, we get introduced to the last threat this game has to offer, the purple hallucinations, explained by the fact that there are strange fumes coming from the facility above. These hallucinations act as a nuisance, but a nuisance you're going to want to maintain. They can appear in any of your cameras or in your office, and they're very quiet. If they're on your cameras, you have to stare at them, and if they're in your office, you have to flash your glow stick at them. They will never kill you themselves, but they will scare the patients if you don't get rid of them. And if the patients get scared, they'll scream, and busted will kill them. Not at all a difficult threat, but an annoying one nonetheless. The game doesn't really start to get too difficult yet at this point, so let's just move on to the post-night 3 minigame. In the post-night 3 minigame, we really just want to get out of the building at this point. We meet a guard who says that the crowd outside is still going spastic. As we try to walk outside, I'm assuming we start hallucinating? I'm not really sure because I have no idea what else I'm looking at could possibly even be. And the minigame comes to a close.
I'm too paranoid. You need to just get us out of here. The creatures are multiplying. Just more staring. Listen out for a squeal if something goes wrong over here. Those purple figures always come for us. Just make sure to get rid of them, please.
What's going on over on your end? I keep hearing such strange noises. If you want something out of me, you better keep me satisfied. I don't want whatever is coming for you near me. Ring the bell you were given if one of them is heading to my room, I want to ring that bell all the time, since it is causing noises, of course. Don't be stupid.
Hey, I still can't talk about what I know yet, but I think I know something that may help you in your endeavors. I know some of the quirks of that thing that is hunting you right now. It's very stealthy. You need to keep an eye on it all the time. It may hide in various spots, so make sure to be up to snuff with your surroundings. I don't know much about its chip data, though. I only ever overheard my sister read out some blueprints she picked up on her last workday a few years ago. Night 4 doesn't introduce anything new, however I do want to take this time to mention a mechanic this game has that makes the entire experience way more difficult than it would normally be. Switching cameras. I know, that may sound like a mechanic that most people wouldn't even think twice about, but it's on this night that busted can start to get pretty quick when moving around. So quickly moving through the cameras will become important. However, even though there's only 3 cameras, switching through them quickly can prove to be quite nerve-wracking. You cannot click any camera at any time. You can only move to cameras adjacent to the camera you're currently on, which means if you're on camera 1 and want to get to camera 3, you will first have to click on camera 2. Typically, this wouldn't be an issue, but you have to wait for a static animation to play each time you switch a camera before you can switch it again. Sure, the animation itself isn't very long, but when you have to switch as much as you do, that time will quickly add up. Overall, this is more of a nitpick than anything, but it is something I noticed during my playthrough, which you can see on my second channel, Dxtr Black. The post-night 4 minigame is a little bit weird. We play as the ghost we saw at the end of the post-night 2 minigame. We walk around the building, talking to children and guards, hearing messages like, "I blame you," and "How can we punish you?" Eventually, we find the body of another child. We say that we can restore it, and upon coming into contact, we get the message, "You must kill them for me."
Just one more to go. Once you left last night, I heard a strange tumbling noise outside. It was metallic and heavy. I don't know what it was, but it may be coming for you this time. Nothing rings a bell, but every time I heard some alarm, it would scamper. I don't think whatever it was likes noise. You have something to play noise? Yes. Please use that to keep yourself safe, but only if it sounds like it's coming close. Using noise at the wrong time may cost you.
You better get me out of here ASAP! I'm done playing these games. If it weren't for that guy holding a pistol to my hand for telling you my information early, I would have been long gone. Get it together! I'm tired of talking to you. Get on with it!
I heard some ruckus outside, friend. I recognized the weird noise pattern from the debugging process from upstairs. Someone was altering the mascot's code. I know this just because of my sister's curiosity. She brought back some pink robot from her workplace to show me how messed up her work environment was. That thing was tossed in the end. It couldn't move regardless, but the same debugging process intro pattern she used was similar to the one I heard upstairs last night. I can only assume that the two systems are related, most likely by the same manufacturer. All I know is that those old models never liked being looked at after some wear and tear. We flashed a light on the pink thing and it sparked a little. It was a very strange find indeed. Well, I hope you can use this information to your advantage tonight. Let's hope we can see the sun once more. Night 5 introduces one final threat. I know, guys, I've been lying constantly throughout this video, but I prefer to call it keeping you on your toes. The final threat introduced is Subject Model 3A, being another annoying character. He will wander around your cameras and you just have to make sure you're not looking at him. If you look at him for too long, I'm assuming you can guess what happens to you. Major bun pounding, salad tossing, you get it. Don't look at him. Overall, he really doesn't add anything new to the mix, really just making it more annoying to keep track of Busted. But if you can complete it, we'll move on to the final minigame. In this final minigame, we play as a child, walking around the restaurant, following what appears to be the ghost of a child. We follow them into the back room where the first kid was killed and speak to one of the animatronics. They apologize for what they did to us, probably in reference to killing us. They said their chip made them do it, and explained that someone else is pulling the strings and making the robots kill people. It ends off by telling us we will never see it again and to leave. Then the minigame comes to a close. Andrew Vargas, it seems you have found your way. We cannot say we are surprised at your feat, especially considering your perseverance was quite equal to your past endeavors. You found your sources, exactly what you wanted. Though, did you ever think to look for more data you could use towards your search? The patients you have saved do not hold all of the information, but just enough for you to draw a plausible conclusion. Regardless of your intentions with the data you hold, your time here is over. You have what you came for, but do you feel empty with what you hold? That is a question that will be left in the air for you to grasp. For now, you may take your prized patients outside of this facility with you. Until you find your true desire and recollection, we thank you for playing our game.
I can't believe it! You did it? I'm free from this place? Oh, I must tell you what I know. Well, okay. I was a producer for one of the most popular animatronic performer shows a few years back. I was vital, but I got to the point where I knew too much. And that is how I wound up here. This man was someone I used to work with. He created these things for his own entertainment business. But he eventually took it too far. He created a powerful computer to control all of his creations from a distance, with whatever behavior he wanted. He always left his plans on his work desk, but one day he felt like something was off. Some grew suspicious of his projects, myself included. But I never took it as far as this one group of people. They were dedicated to finding his grand computer. They went as far as setting up hidden cameras around the building to track anything they could. Anything that could leave a trace back to its whereabouts. But they never found it, because the man attacked and killed one of them. I saw it on old discarded footage. That is all I know. I hope this helps you.
Took you long enough? Let's make this conversation quick. I was one of the construction employees set to renovate the supply and storage facility for future use. It was gonna be under some childish name like Busters, I think. I was the only one that showed up to the job early, like always. I got to one of the storage trucks I left outside, and that's where my life took a turn. They had a rotting corpse and dismantled robots in that truck, man. A rotting corpse. You could never understand how disgusting that was to see face to face. Sucker fell right out of the truck too, like it was last in line. It was in some blue wreck of a mascot suit. It had a camera stuffed in its mouth. It was horrible. I think you get it now. I went to go get my bag and quit my job, but some gray thing grabbed me and pulled me deeper into that building. Next thing you know, I was dangling for my life. Awesome, right? Well, it pulled me past some satellite. It was covered in those dumb white masks you've seen. The same one the guy is wearing. It's all some weird gimmick. But I know what that gimmick is for. That satellite was being used to get that white rabbit robot back from the depths of the forest, right off of Brickview Boulevard. It had to have been made for that. I'm no fool. I knew about that white monster rumor, and I even went hunting for it one time with the boys. It has to be linked. That's all I got for you. We better not come into contact like this again.
I have to owe you something for your determination, my friend. I'm honored. Oh, right, I do owe you something. I have something to tell you. Before this, I was an aspiring mechanical engineer. Machines have always enticed me, so I had been studying it for months prior to this incident. As you know, my sister had worked at that old supply and storage facility years ago. She was my main inspiration for this interest of mine. That night, when she came home with that pink robot, changed everything for me. We dug into the hardware of the robot ourselves. Our father had some spare tools in the garage, so we didn't have to rip into it to damage the thing even worse. We found a lot of weird oddities. One of the most obvious ones was its back. It had the tips of endoskeleton fingers buried in the suit piece, like it was torn apart by one of its own. Another one was its eye. We found a serial number printed in a fine black font face in the back of the eyelids, but it only routed to a 404 page on our home computer. Lastly, it had a code written on the inside of each of the suit parts. It read Model Pound 3C. I don't know the significance of the C. Maybe it was part of a trio, unless there are models with parts 3D or more. We extracted the chip from the robot, though. It was in a very rough condition, but it was somewhat intact. It even had a USB slot in it, which was extremely new at the time. We plugged the cord into our home computer, but it pulled up a ton of strange prompts. We clicked through all of them and found a folder with many text files inside of it. A lot of it was just a garbled mess, but some had what seemed to be addresses. They were impossible for us to decipher fully. Was this animatronic generation holding locations? That's the strange part. What's even more strange is that it had a file named task.txt amongst all the other distorted file names. We opened it, but for some reason the USB had ejected itself. We tried plugging it back into the computer, but it wouldn't pick it up again. All I was able to see before it disconnected was something along the lines of, "He must see what I have done, and maybe he will realize he should have stayed by my side. I know what I'm doing." That's all that I know, friend. See you on the other side.
Project Readjusted's story doesn't throw the answers at you. It gives you pieces, conversations, job descriptions, weird one-liners, and you're meant to piece together what was really happening behind the walls of Buster's Diner World. But once you line everything up, the picture is pretty clear. Two employees start a project they don't fully understand. It gets out of control, and one of them ends up paying the price for it. It all starts after Buster shuts down. The public thinks the place is done, the animatronics are boxed up, and everyone has moved on. But Diner World Entertainment hasn't. They're still in the building, still tinkering, and still trying to push something forward. Something they only ever call the project. And at the center of it are two people, Andrew Vargas and his coworker, Matthew. The two are exploring the closed building long after hours, checking the animatronics, looking through old hardware, and trying to locate something hidden deep inside the cast. Something the company wants extremely badly. A special chip connected to a hostile presence in the animatronics. They can't pull it out safely, they can't study it while it's roaming, and they can't risk handling it directly. So their entire plan is built around one thing: lure the entity into range, pull the chip, replace it, and get out. But they can't do it themselves. They need someone to sit in the office every night, act like a regular night guard, and unintentionally draw the animatronics towards them so Andrew and Matthew can track the patterns. That's where Hayden comes in. On paper, Hayden is just watching the cameras for 6 short nights. In reality, he's bait.
Everything he sees, Buster, Glancer, Redeemer, all of it is part of a larger plan to drag this thing out. And for the most part, the plan works. The animatronics are active, the patterns are recorded, the project moves into its second stage. But then something happens that completely derails Matthew. Someone else breaks into the building. A man who isn't supposed to be there. Someone snooping around who gets far too close to whatever Andrew and Matthew are doing. The fandom calls him the spy, and Matthew panics. Instead of letting their secret get out, he kills the intruder. Not an accident, a choice. And it's the moment everything changes. Andrew is horrified, Matthew goes quiet, and from that point on, the two of them aren't on the same page anymore. Not long after that, Matthew disappears. No goodbye, no confession, no explanation. He's just gone. And Andrew is left with two things: a project he no longer trusts, and a friend who might have destroyed himself trying to finish it. When Project Readjusted 2 begins, we're not playing as Hayden anymore. We're someone closer to the company, a technician finishing their final assignment for Diner World Entertainment. This job isn't about survival, it's about data. Watching animatronic behavior, tracking motion patterns, feeding information back into whatever the project is turning into. And in the background of all of this, someone, heavily implied to be Andrew, keeps repeating the same thoughts. He's been gone for so long. I need answers. Where did he go? The entire game feels like Andrew trying to keep the company satisfied while quietly searching for any clue about Matthew's disappearance. Meanwhile, the animatronics are no longer just mascots. They're infested, corrupted, wired shut, and torn open. The prototypes that were experimented on long after Buster's closed. The project has clearly moved forward, and whatever they pulled from those animatronics is now being pushed into something else, something bigger, something human. And Andrew eventually gets the lead he's been waiting for, something that points away from Buster's, away from the diner entirely, and into a new location, a facility the company is tied to, a place where living subjects are being kept alive for testing. And to follow this trial, Andrew makes a deal, a job offer he can't refuse, something that promises answers about Matthew at a cost. That's where Project Readjusted 3 picks up. Andrew is now inside this medical facility, sitting in a monitoring booth, watching over patients who can't leave their rooms. His job is to keep them alive by sending supplies down long, empty hallways, making sure they don't lose consciousness, and trying not to get killed by something stalking him in the dark. A twisted, hulking version of Buster that shouldn't even exist in a place like this. But the deeper Andrew goes, the more obvious it becomes that this facility is just the project's final phase. The animatronics were only the beginning. The chip, the patterns, the experiments, all of it was leading to human testing. And somewhere inside this building, one of the patients isn't just another victim. He's the thing Andrew has been searching for since the moment Matthew vanished. Matthew didn't run. He didn't escape. He didn't move on. He was taken, absorbed into the same project he helped build. In Project Readjusted 3, Matthew is the subjected member, a living test subject altered by the very experiments he and Andrew once tried to control. And that's the real truth behind Project Readjusted. A company digs up something dangerous hidden inside their animatronics. 2 employees tried to pull off a secret extraction. Someone dies, one of them vanishes, and years later, the entire operation has grown into a human experimentation program, with Matthew trapped at the center of it, and Andrew desperately trying to undo the damage. This game never spells everything out, and the dev has even said the full story was never completely written down, but from what everything we do see, the trilogy comes down to a single idea. They started the project together, Andrew survived it, Matthew didn't. But as far as I could gather, and as far as I'm aware, that's all Project Readjusted has to offer. There was supposed to be a final installment, Project Readjusted 4 Jet Black, but it was cancelled due to scheduling conflicts and the pair incident of Game Jolt, which I'm not going to dive into today. Maybe another time. Overall, I think each game in this series progressively got better and better.
I think the story I was able to piece together is really interesting and very good, but I really wish it was more concrete so I didn't have to speculate as much as I did. Project Readjusted 3 is a phenomenal FNAF game and one of the most creative I've ever seen, and I highly recommend you give this series a try. But let me know what you think. Do you agree with me, or do you think Project Readjusted is actually just a confusing dumpster fire? Let me know in the comments below. In my 5 Nights at Maggie's video, I asked you guys which series you'd like to see me cover next, and my favorite comment is this one by Witchery. They said Tealerland, and while that's not really a series, it is a game I really loved and that I do have on my list to talk about on Dxtr White. Subscribe to the channel, I'd appreciate it a lot. Thank you to all of my superfan channel members, you guys are the greatest. I've been Dxtr, and I'll see you guys in the next video. See ya!